All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. So welcome back, everyone. I hope you were able to tune in yesterday. If not, we will get the recorded webinar to you within the week. Today, my partners are Rebecca Milliken of the City of Berkeley's Office of Energy and Sustainable Development and Denaya Shorter, the Ecology Center's Director of Community Engagement. Big thanks to the City of Berkeley and the Ecology Center for their terrific support and expertise. I also want to acknowledge the support of the Berkeley Electrification Working Group. Members Tom Grayley, Chris Gilbert, and Igor Tragub are helping out in the chat and Q&A today, answering any questions that they can and sharing links. Lastly, I want to acknowledge my son Jude, a senior at Berkeley High, who did all the videography and video editing. Video takes up a lot of bandwidth, so depending on the speed of your internet connection and the strength of your Wi-Fi, your viewing experience may vary widely. This event is made possible through the support of our sponsors and also individual donations from attendees like you. And every one of our sponsors is engaged in important work moving us into a clean energy future. This includes government entities like Stop Waste and Bayren, who help connect you with free help, rebates, and resources, and nonprofits working on energy policy solutions and advocacy like the Building Decarbonization Coalition and the League of Women Voters, and power providers like EBCE and MCE, who are quickly making the electricity on the grid cleaner every year and investing in the community, and service providers like Got Watts, Electrify My Home, Eco Performance Builders, Harvest Thermal, Save a Lot Solar, and Blue Rock Home. These companies are all you need to completely get off fossil fuels in your home and generate your own energy. I have tremendous respect and gratitude for these agencies, businesses, and organizations who play important roles in the movement. But this event is a labor of love, and we produce it on a very limited budget with help from these sponsorships, but also from donations. So if you find it useful or inspiring, please donate at eastbaygreenhome.com. Oops, there we go.
Thanks, Amy. So thanks for those of you who are returning, and welcome to those who are joining us for the first day. I will just announce that yesterday's video will be available, as are all of the segments. So it will be available on the eastbaygreenhome.com. Just as a quick recap for those of you who are joining us today, yesterday we learned about the concept of load shifting, and that's using electricity when it's clean and cheap. And you'll see more of that today in Danana Manisha's house. You'll also hear about a passive house principles, do-it-yourself battery storage, and different apps that can help you dial in efficiency and savings. And then you'll also hear from Denaya Shorter from the Ecology Center, all about the green home actions that renters can take, all of which are also relevant for homeowners. You're going to see 2 accessory dwelling units, ADUs, an all-electric rental that squeezes a lot of functionality in a small space, and a fire-resistant straw bale. We'll view 2 Block Power projects. Block Power is partnering with East Bay Community Energy in Alameda County to insulate and electrify the homes of low and moderate income homeowners. If you want to green your home, but thought it was financially out of reach, you need to know about Block Power. They are the same entity that's electrifying Ithaca, all of Ithaca, New York. And we're also going to hear from energy expert Tom Kabat, the creator of the Watt Diet, which you'll learn more about. Many times when we're transitioning off fossil fuels, people run into problems with their electric panel being maxed out. And Tom has a bunch of strategies to fit everything into your existing 100 amp panel.
Awesome. Thanks, Rebecca. I'm doing tech on the back end, so let me try to spotlight myself really quick. Good morning. Thanks everyone for being here. If you are back for day 2, thanks again for supporting in this final day of the Green Home Tour. Really quick, again, my name is Denaya from the Ecology Center. I want to do a really quick Zoom basics primer. If you haven't had 2 full years of experience like a lot of us have, just a quick reminder. As you'll see at the bottom of the screen, you have 4 different icons: chat, raise hand, Q&A, and live transcript. So those are very important icons that you might want to make use of this morning, excuse me. Chat is for making comments, engaging with other attendees. And we also have chat ambassadors there to engage and drop useful links throughout the different presentations. So please utilize the chat as much as you like, but please put your questions in the Q&A panel. So if you have a question for a panelist, if something comes up throughout the tour and it's a specific question you'd like an answer to, please make sure you put that in the Q&A and not the chat. If you want to just speak with others, if you have a great comment about a panelist, if you're enjoying yourself or having a good time, please, we more than welcome you to engage in the chat for those. The live transcription icon will allow you to disable or enable the live transcript on your own screen. So that's a good option if you are having any trouble hearing or you just want some extra detail about what's happening on screen. If you don't get your questions answered today, we have a jam-packed agenda and we'll try to get to as many questions as possible. If you don't, you can type them into the Google form that we have. Rebecca will be dropping the link in the chat several times throughout today's tour. So feel free to open that up and pop any questions in that don't get answered live or that we might not have gotten a chance to get to. And we'll get back to you in the next couple of weeks with answers to those questions. And without further ado, let's get into our agenda for today. Thanks again for being here.
I want to start today's tour with this primary message. To avoid catastrophic climate change, we need to 1, quit burning fossil fuels in our homes, 2, sequester carbon in our soil, trees, and plants, and 3, compost our organic waste instead of sending it to the landfill. If you attended yesterday, you heard from Trevor Probert how compost literally helps the ground become a carbon sink. Now, to adapt to climate change, we need places to stay cool, ways to avoid fire and smoke, and we need to capture, reuse, and conserve water. So these are there are other essential climate change strategies, but when thinking about your home, these are really the top line actions. And the technologies to do this are already here. There's no need to wait for some big magical fix to come down the pike. We have the tools right now. There are a lot of different pathways that people are taking towards greening their home, and you're going to see a lot of examples today. And I hope that the journeys of these homeowners inspire you. As you plan and vision for your green home, if you hit a wall or need advice or want to explore your options, help exists. A major goal of this tour is to connect you with the information and local resources you need to take the next step. bayren.org and switcheson.org are great places to start. When I read the news in the morning, I can go into despair mode before my feet ever hit the floor. And one of my antidotes to feeling powerless and overwhelmed is to do something that is in my control. For example, one of my go-to stress relievers is weeding. It's like this little action that I can do right where I am to make change and also feel a sense of agency. So a major goal of the Green Home Tour is to inspire you to make change in the place where you have the most agency, which is the little kingdom that is your home. And this slide is a photo of my kingdom with my switches on sign out front. I will never stop taking collective action or flexing my citizen muscle to vote for environmentally forward initiatives and candidates or lobbying for aggressive climate action. But it's in my own home where I have the most capacity for change. And so that's one area where I can really advance the ball down the field, moving toward my vision and my values. Besides my home, the other place where I have a lot of influence is my social network. And so do you. And so for me, that can look a lot of different ways. It's me talking to my neighbor in the middle of the street about no money down solar leases. It's me telling my friends who are lifting their house to get a second floor under the first, hey, this is your chance to get a heat pump system. It's me telling my sister who has asthma how I got rid of my gas stove to improve indoor air quality because my son and husband also have asthma. It's me posting a photo of my induction stove on Facebook saying, hey, ask me about my stove. I want to invite you to own the power that you have as an individual to influence the people in your life as a voter, an activist, a neighbor, a coworker, and part of a social network. When we were making the first green home tour last year, as my son was flying his drone over the homes, we noticed from the drone footage that solar panels would be found in clusters. And a solar expert that I know told me that it's well known that solar adoption happens along networks of people who are talking to each other. So it's neighbors talking with neighbors about their experience, their motivation, their process. It really emboldens the people in your life to take steps in the same direction that you are. So share what you know, including these home videos, which will land on YouTube later this week. You can share them to your heart's content. And please don't underestimate your power and influence as a social animal. So let's start touring some homes. Our first home belongs to Dannon and Manisha. And although it looks like new construction, it's actually an extensive remodel. And with the remodel, Dannon was inspired by passive house principles, the cornerstone of which is the concept of a very thickly insulated and sealed building envelope. So let's watch the video.
I'm Dannon.
I'm Manisha.
And we originally moved in here in 2012. And about 2 years ago, we started on a project to remodel our house to meet some of our needs and also to make it really comfortable and energy efficient.
And we're excited to show you our place.
When we embarked on this remodel, we wanted to bring together a lot of our interests in reducing our fossil fuel usage and increasing the comfort of our home. And that led us to passive house design principles, net zero design principles, and a variety of approaches to achieving this. And one thing that it really showed us is that to do this, you don't have to be uncomfortable. You can actually live a very high quality of life, and even better quality of life than we did before, where we're not cold in the winter, we're not hot in the summer, and our air quality is really great. There's no sacrifice really to living in a home that meets these kinds of requirements.
So one of the things that I really wanted in this remodel was a fireplace, but that was challenging because...
Well, the house is all electric, and we also didn't want to put a hole for a chimney in the house in order to keep the house really airtight and efficient. So what we settled on was this bioethanol fireplace, which is really neat because it runs on bioethanol. It doesn't require any electricity. It puts out enough heat so that we can enjoy the heat, and even if the power goes out in the winter, we can actually use this to heat the house.
So when we originally moved into the house, there were concrete floors, and I was constantly cold. I mean, there were a lot of other reasons why I was cold, but one of the things that was the coldest part of the house was the concrete floor, and there was no heating under the floor, and the cold would just radiate like in through your body. It was hard to live here.
Yeah. So when we did the remodel, one of the ways that we addressed the feeling of warmth here was by using cork floors instead of wood floors. And cork is great because it is a natural insulator. So we have 2 layers of cork here. We have a cork underlayment on top of the concrete, and then we have the cork finished flooring. And with these 2 layers, the floor stays pretty warm underfoot. It doesn't suck it doesn't suck heat out of your feet, basically.
Yeah, and it feels soft. So it's got
And
this
resilient,
nice,
yeah.
It's got a little bit of give. It's great.
So welcome to our kitchen. There's 2 features I want to share with you here. The first one is this island top, which is from a tree that was destined for the dump, but a local lumber fabricator took it and milled it for us into this tabletop. And it's a sequoia, actually, that was cut down somewhere in the city. As you know, sequoias are not native to this area. So instead it became a tabletop for us.
So here's our stove, and this stove it's great. It's been great for us. When we first moved in, my mother came to visit. She loves to cook, and she was really, really worried about it. First of all, she thought it was an electric stove because it looks a lot like electric stoves from way back. And she cooks Indian food, and she just was very skeptical whether it would make the things that she loves to cook for us correctly. Dannon actually has a funny story about what happened when she came to cook here for the first time.
Right. So my mother-in-law likes to deep fry things, and this is her very important deep frying thing. And we were really worried that it wasn't going to work on the induction stove. So when she went through all of our pots, she put it here, filled it up, and we all kind of waited on pins and needles as she turned it on. And lo and behold, her very special deep frying thing worked. And she was really happy after that. And now she tells everyone about her daughter's induction stove.
Okay, so it turns out that when you're using an induction stove, you do need to have a certain type of cookware that works with induction. And I was able to find that it's actually quite easy to find. So this is one of the most common makers of this kind of cookware. It's called Tefal, and you can find them anywhere. So that was great.
And then actually what was surprising for us is that we were able to find specialty Indian cookware like this pan that is used to make rotis. And I was really surprised. I went to the Indian stores on University Avenue, and they had a whole section of induction cookware specifically for cooking Indian food. So who knew? So I want to talk about one of the interesting systems we have here. It's called a heat recovery ventilator, and it has two functions. The primary function is to constantly provide us 24/7 fresh air inside the house. And so that happens via this circular duct above my head. It is constantly supplying fresh air to all this space and to all the living spaces of the house. And at the same time, stale air is being pulled out of the kitchen and the bathrooms. And the other thing it does is recover heat from the inside air so that we don't exhaust heat when we get fresh air. And then.
Yeah, well, I have to say, Dannon, when he was explaining the system that we're putting into this house when we're remodeling, I'm new to a lot of these concepts, so I just really needed to live here to understand how all of this worked and what it would feel like. And my experience of this has been a wonderful surprise. It's just always fresh in this house, and I don't know how else to explain it better, but it's like I've never lived in a house where the air just always feels so clean.
It's like you're always outside on a clean air day in the spring.
It's really neat. I was not expecting that at all. The other thing is, just going back to my mom's cooking and her love for making us delicious fried foods. When she cooks in here, we don't have a huge amount of space. It's an open design, but you would expect that you could probably smell the oil in the air for a while, but it turns out that with this ventilation system that we have, within a couple of hours the house is totally fresh again, even after her cooking. So it's been it's really neat.
So after this remodel, our house this past winter used 70% less heat, and we were a lot more comfortable than we used to be in the house. And a big reason for that is because we tightly air sealed this house and put a lot of insulation in the walls. As a result of that, the house doesn't either gain or lose heat very much, and it stays extremely temperate and comfortable inside all year round. So we have 4 heat pumps in this house. The first one everyone's familiar with. It's our refrigerator, and everyone has one of those. And it's basically a heat pump. It pumps heat out of the refrigerator. The other heat pumps we have that are perhaps less conventional are this dryer right here. So it's a heat pump dryer. It doesn't use gas, nor does it use a resistive electrical element to heat up. It uses a heat pump. And one neat thing about it is that it doesn't need a vent to the outside. So we don't have a hole going through our wall, inducing a leak to the house. The other heat pumps we have are our hot water heater and our space heater, our heat pump for our heating and cooling of the house, which provides us both heat in the winter and air conditioning in the summertime. We are enrolled with a new program with East Bay Community Energy, which will control our hot water heater, and it will heat water when renewables are available and energy is cleaner, and it will avoid heating water when they are not. And there's an incentive from East Bay Community Energy to connect your heat pump water heater to this program. We have both solar and storage on this house. This is a 10 kilowatt hour N-phase battery system. We use it for both for offsetting peak electricity usage from the grid, and also as a backup battery in the case of grid outage. Something unique about this was that I installed this system using Enphase's self-installer certification program, which is a course you take to certify yourself to design and install these systems. So we are doing a number of things in this house to effectively load shift our electricity usage. And I want to go over a few of those things. One of them is the electric vehicle charger here, which is enrolled with a program that ensures that the EV charges when electricity is cleaner and also cheaper. And I get paid a small incentive from the EV charger manufacturer to participate in their demand response program. Thanks for visiting our home. We hope that you're inspired by what we did here to make our home greener, more efficient, more sustainable, and more comfortable.
All right, now we have Dan in here to answer some of your questions. Dan, can you undo your video?
Hi.
Hi, there you are.
And I have, coincidentally, my architect is sitting right here, so.
Oh, that's exciting. Right on.
Yeah.
So Rebecca's going to ask the first question.
Hey, thanks. It was just, your home is beautiful, and I learned so many new things here. And, you know, as you said, although your home looks like it's brand new construction, it's actually this extensive remodel. And I know, and, you know, in this, one of the things you talked about is that the house is really well insulated and sealed from, you know, drafts and things like that. And you're using this heat recovery system. And there are a number of questions in the Q&A about them. So the first one, if you could just explain to us, how does it not bring smoky air in during the fire season? I understand wanting the fresh air to come in on a day like today, but how do you keep the smoky air out?
So one thing, this was kind of a, I guess I would say is an in-flight change and an update we made to the system, kind of thinking about what it was doing and preparing for those days. So on the intake for the heat recovery ventilator, we actually have an extra filter box, and it has 2 filters, extra filters in it before the fresh air ever hits the heat recovery ventilator. And one is a carbon filter, and the other one is a, I guess, a MERV 13 filter. So it actually has these pre-filters in it to pull a lot of the smoke out. The other thing you can do with these systems is you can induce a small positive pressure in the house, so that if you open a door or something like that, it will slightly imbalance the system to keep the air pushing out as much as possible, so that most of the air comes in from outside through the filter system and doesn't leak in when you open a door. So there are these little things that you can do to kind of mitigate the effect of smoke that might come in otherwise. And you can always turn it off too. That's the other thing. And that the house, once you've turned it off, the house is super sealed. So the chances that smoke enters this house when the ventilation systems are off is very small.
Wow. There were a lot of questions about the filter, so thank you for explaining that. I'm going to, let's see, there's one more about the ventilator. Let's see. So this one's a little technical. Let me make sure I'm understanding this. So the person's writing that if the reintroduced air is constantly being pumped into the house, is there a heat exchange feature? And does that have, and what is the medium that's being used, and what would be the global warming potential? So yesterday we talked about different refrigerants. So if you could speak a little bit about that.
So I think there's two technologies going on here. One is the heat pump system. That is the thing that actually heats our house and cools our house. So it's the replacement for a furnace, for example. So the heat pump we have is a Fujitsu inverter variable speed heat pump, and like all heat pumps, it uses a refrigerant. It is, I think, R141A. So it is one of these refrigerants that has a high global warming potential. There's not really a lot of heat pumps on the market yet that have the low global warming potential refrigerants yet. That said, if somebody who knows what they're doing installs these things and services these things, there shouldn't be a release of these refrigerants into the atmosphere. But yeah, it is over the coming years, as far as I have learned, we need to transition towards things like CO2 as a refrigerant for heat pumps. So that's on the heat pump side. The other side is the heat recovery ventilator. I don't know if this was what they were asking, but it does this cool trick where, in addition to getting us fresh air, when it takes, in the wintertime, when it's colder outside and warmer inside, when it takes stale air from our bathrooms and kitchen and pumps it out of the house, it does one thing before that, which is that it transfers about 90% of the heat in that air into the fresh filtered incoming airstream. And so the analogy is, imagine on a cold day outside, you want fresh air. Imagine you can like open a window and somehow magically the fresh air came in, but the heat didn't go out. And that's kind of what this machine is doing. 90% of the heat stays in the house, which is really cool.
Thank you. That made it much more understandable for me. I hope that helps the people listening in. I'm going to switch gears. We got a lot of questions for your home, and for those who are listening in. When you're done, if you have time, if you can hop into the Q&A and chat and respond to any I didn't get to. So questions about the cork floor, and I had neighbors that just installed cork flooring too. So I'm curious about this also. So they know it's, cork is biological, it comes from a tree. Is it grown only in a limited geographical area? So is it sustainable if demand for this increases significantly?
That's a really good question. And coincidentally, I was just in Portugal and I asked people about it because that's where most of it comes from. And I think that it is a really good question. So what I do know is that when they remove the cork from the tree, the tree continues to produce cork. I got this cool wallet made of cork while I was there. It's kind of neat. Bought it in like a farmer's market or something there. But it is, I think, cork, I don't want to say it's the solution for everything. We're going to need, like with all these sorts of things, multiple solutions. Like our walls are insulated with ground up newspaper cellulose, for example. This is a space that I follow a bit, and it's like there are new ideas coming in, like hemp insulation, all kinds of things. So it's, the usual thing they say with this, not a single silver bullet. Cork was a really nice option for us for the flooring because it insulated us from the concrete, and it's also resilient, kind of like a carpet, but without the kind of bad part of carpets, which is trapping dust. So that's why we did it. And it was nice to have something that was, carbon negative material. I don't really know actually the answer to the big question there.
Okay. Just a quick follow up on that. Given I've heard that it's, as you said, it's soft and so it's kind of easier on the feet. But given that it is soft, like how does it withstand if you've got dogs or cats that might scratch on it? Are those very visible?
I'm working on getting a dog. I haven't gotten approval yet. So you might have to come and check with me in about a year time if I succeed.
All right. You'll have to report out.
Yeah, so it is softer. Like you definitely have to be more careful in the sense of it will gouge. I mean, I don't know if you could see it from the video, but it's kind of right down here. But the interesting thing is that in the process of installing it, I made some mistakes, but because it has a modeled appearance, you can actually kind of like fix it in a way. It handles wear more gracefully because it's inherently it's not a perfect looking material in the first place. So yeah, it's not as hard it's far less hard than a true hardwood floor, without a doubt. That's a feature in a way. So.
All right, well, thank you so much for joining us. And so we're gonna move on to the next thing, but it was a joy to meet you and your family, and also to see your beautiful group.
Yeah. And also, I wanted to give a shout out to Amy for putting all of this together, and also like making it really broad, more than just people who redo entire house remodels. I think it's really important that like the ideas and solutions for these things are things that like a lot of people can participate in. So thanks, Amy.
Thank you. Yeah, that was my aim. All right, now we're going to hear from our one of our sponsors, EBCE.
I'm really excited to be EBCE because of all the opportunities it'll offer me to save money.
I was surprised to find out that I could actually have a choice about where my energy comes from.
Thanks to EBCE, our kids are going to have a clean planet to live on when they're older.
I need the power to work in my studio. Of course, I'd love to be able to use more renewable energy.
We now have choices, and I'm happy to choose East Bay Community Energy as my source for local clean power.
Okay, so last year's tour featured a single ADU, and today we're going to be showing 2 ADUs. And the East Bay ADU trend is really picking up steam because ADUs function as rentals, home offices, and places to house aging relatives. So this first ADU that we're going to see is Jenny's, which houses tenants Natalie and Joseph.
Hi, I'm Jenny. I live in this property in Berkeley with my family, and I had this ADU built so that we could convert a duplex that was on the property into a house and have more space for us. And I want to introduce you to the property's, the ADU's designer, Sarah, the architect, and John, the builder, and Natalie is living in the ADU now.
Hi, I'm Natalie, and my fiance and I are both graduate students at UC Berkeley, and we've been living in this lovely ADU for the past 9 months, and I'm excited to show you around.
So when I started thinking about this project, the motivation was mostly to provide more space for me and my family in the main house, which used to be a duplex. But when I met Sarah, the architect, and John, the builder, they were very well versed in green building solutions. And I was even happier to be able to build something that was environmentally friendly, as well as meeting my initial purpose. So in addition to the cottage itself, John also built this shelter for our bikes, which has space for 6 bikes, which both me and my children and Joseph and Natalie use to ride around town.
This cottage is all electric and very well insulated with cellulose and rock wool insulation. We only needed minimal electric heating.
And we used 2 blower door tests to confirm the air sealing strategy so that we knew that no matter what, we would not need to use very much energy.
I, the architect, painted the beam, which is something I don't normally get to do. It's a lot of fun. And John hand carved the 3 hand carved posts.
Welcome to my kitchen. There are 3 primary green features. The first is the all-electric stove, which doesn't foul the indoor air quality. Second is these great tiles, which are from a local company called Fireclay that uses reclaimed materials. And last is the awesome combined dish storage / dryer rack, which is really convenient.
Most of the wood used on this project is certified by the Forest Stewardship Council, FSC certified. The wood from this table was actually salvaged from one of our previous jobs. This is fir framing wood from a house in Berkeley.
One thing that Sarah and I were very conscious of when we were designing the house was that we wanted it to be small and but still practical. So she added a lot of interesting storage features and spaces that can be used practically within a small area, such as?
Yeah, my fiance and I are pretty outdoorsy. We have a lot of gear, and we managed to fit basically all of it. So we have our camping supplies, our bike helmets under gear, and in that one as well, we have skis under the bed. So even with a pretty gear-oriented lifestyle, we're able to fit in a very small space. So this is a heat recovery ventilator that brings in fresh air to the bedroom and the rest of the house. And here you can see even more great storage that's built in. We have these drawers that go all the way back so we can fit clothes, and we have our skis here, so more great convenient storage. So one more feature that shows off how the design makes the most of a small space is instead of closet doors, we just have this curtain, which also is nice because it's less building material overall. So this is where we hang all of our clothes, and it fits really nicely in the space. So this is our Energy Star washing machine. And since we don't have a dryer, we often use the ladder to the loft to hang things, as well as a little standing rack. But the ladder works really well for towels and sheets and things. And the ladder takes you up to the loft, which we use as a hangout space. We have a record player and some pillows, and it's also kind of a guest bedroom when we have people come visit.
The floor is concrete, which is a very durable material, which is good for rental. And it's also high volume fly ash concrete. I'm not sure the exact percentage we ended up with, but that is concrete where some of the Portland cement is replaced with a waste product, which makes it a little less of a carbon footprint.
The main house has solar panels that provide the energy for both of the houses on the property. And also in the main house is an electric heat pump hot water heater, which also gives the hot water for both households. As part of making this small house comfortable for everyone, Sarah figured out a way to create a small patio that provides a private outdoor space separate from the rest of the property.
Thank you for visiting our home, and I hope that some of these green features have inspired you for your future building projects.
Okay, so that was an extremely cute ADU. And today we have Jenny, the property owner, and it looks like Natalie also was maybe tuning in. I saw her name briefly. Hi Jenny, how are you? Oh no,
you're fine. I don't know why Natalie's name, maybe Natalie's name is on my link or something.
I may have sent you the wrong one. Not to worry,
okay.
Everyone. We are talking with Jenny. We're talking with Jenny. Oh my gosh, everyone is just in love with your ADU. So first thing is, can you for John and Sarah, your builder and architect, they want to know who this is and what's their website. For folks listening
Okay,
in.
well, Sarah says she just told me that she's hanging around for backup. So I guess it's okay to share that info. Sarah Deeds, and it's Deeds Design. I don't know the website, but if you Google it, I'm sure you can find it. I found her on Berkeley Parents Network.
Well,
And
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I also wanted to say that if you go to eastbaygreenhome.com and click on the Jenny's ADU, you can see the links to Sarah and John the builder as well.
okay. Okay, good. So because yeah, it's John McBride. And I've just seen one of the questions and I'm going to figure it out quickly. There was a question about the cost, but should I answer something else first?
Yeah. Yeah. So first, we've got questions that bike garage. Okay. We have a garage that is filled with like 8 bikes in our house, and we're all falling all over each other. So was that designed for you, or did John or Sarah do it? How did you get the idea for that?
John did it. So, once the ADU was complete and we kind of looked around the garden, and we had our own family's bikes attached to trees all over the front yard and under tarps, and it was a mess. We still have some up there, but one was stolen last week actually. And not from the shelter, from the ones that we leave in front. And so I thought, gosh, it would be really nice, especially given the green focus of the ADU, to be able to lock up bikes conveniently. And so, yeah, John just designed the bike shed and built it. And it was, I think, one of the quickest and most straightforward aspects of the project, as far as I could tell.
Great. Few questions about your water heating. So we know you have a heat pump water heater, and if I heard you right, it's at the main house, and it is supplying hot water for both the main house and for the ADU. How long does it take for that hot water to reach the ADU?
I can't give you like an exact minutes and seconds, but I know that Joseph and Natalie did mention that it takes a little while. And so, they gather the water while it's heating in order to water plants. That's not really supposed to be that way, but we did look at it took into account whether it would be better to have one of these recirculating heat pumps, which allows the water to stay hot always, or just wait and let the water run while it heats up. And not really knowing which exactly factors to put in, but just sort of doing a rough and, back of the envelope sort of calculation. We figured it was half a dozen of one to 6 of the other. And so we decided not to put in the recirculating pump and just, go with waiting for the water.
Great. Okay. Folks want to know just approximately how big is that ADU?
485 square feet.
So it is on the smaller side. From the videos, it's just amazing use of space, as you showed out in all the storage. How long did it take to build that? Was it a long project, or?
Well, it's kind of hard to separate because there was a remodel going on in the main house also, which John was working on at the same time. So I don't know whether the time is going to reflect actual time, but the whole thing took about 2 years. And also it overlapped with when COVID started. So
that number of pieces happening. Yeah. So I know we're coming up on time. There are a lot of folks wanting to know if it's okay to ask about, the cost of the building, and you as the, it's up to you if you want to go back in and feel free to give that or not as your comfort level. But I think, people kind of want to get a sense, like, what would it cost to do this? So
yeah, I can give a per square foot cost and stuff. Should I just go into the chat, or where do I do that?
You know what? We have time for one more question. So why don't you grab one more from the Q&A before?
Sure. Okay. So I don't know if the questions about where you can get that low carbon concrete that was mentioned, that was used for the flooring.
Okay, that is a question for Sarah. So
Okay.
if she is in fact there for backup, let me just text her so that she knows.
Sarah can put in, it can get answered after as well.
You know what, Sarah? The last home that we're showing today is a straw bale that was also designed by Sarah. So she will actually be live at the end of this program. And I know last year, Kathy Kramer's foundation used low carbon footprint concrete from a local place called Verdant. And I remembered that because that's the name of my consultancy is Verdant. And I thought, hey, another Verdant. So I'm not sure if that's where they sourced it, but I know that that is one source of the concrete that uses a lot of fly ash.
Okay, yeah, Sarah just said from regular supplier. Verdant, said Sarah.
Yeah, right
on. Verdant likes to really push the envelope and spec extremely high volume fly ash concrete, which is great, but it can cause technical problems if you're not used to it. But you just ask for a mix that's high volume fly ash and various percentages are used. It's become pretty standard actually by like Caltrans uses high volume fly ash concrete. So
thank you, Sarah, for piping in on that. Okay, well, thank you, Jenny. And we're gonna move along. And so Jenny, if you have any minutes to pop down and answer questions in the Q&A, that would be awesome.
Great. Thanks a lot. Thanks to you guys for organizing.
Thank you.
Okay.
California's history happened just this year alone.
One of the best ways to fight climate change is to decarbonize your home with Harvest Thermal. 2/3 of the gas emissions come from your heating and hot water. The Harvest system not only lowers your utility bills by 40%, but slashes emissions by 93%. You can make an immediate difference today with Harvest Thermal.
All right, so now we've come to the very first presentation of the day, and our first presenter is Denaya Shorter, who you've already met. She's the Community Engagement Program Director at the Ecology Center, and she's going to present on green home strategies for renters. And again, all of these strategies, almost all of them, are also really relevant for homeowners as well. So welcome, Denaya, and she's going to screen share her screen.
Awesome. Thanks, Amy. Just going to spotlight myself really quick. All right, I think we're live. Thanks everyone for your patience. And we've had some great videos and now a full day of different opportunities for homeowners. So we want to just kind of pivot a little bit and offer some relevant tips, information, and resources for those of us who are renting. And even if you're not a renter, these tips and this information is also very relevant for landlords and residents of all kinds. So here, 45% of Californians are renters. Uh-oh, here I go advancing my slides too quickly. And a quarter of those renters live on low to extremely low incomes. In cities like Oakland and Berkeley, the majority of households are renters. And renters like me are essential to the renewable energy transition. Renters also face a lot of barriers to making big changes to their homes. Renters don't have the right to make big changes to the buildings where they live. We're very limited in that. But we wanted to take some space today to tell you what, not necessarily tell you what you can't do as a renter, but really share some tips and information about what you can do as a renter to green your home. And even, of course, if you're not a renter, many of these strategies will still be on point and relevant to you as well. Many of the strategies I'll share with you today come from Rewiring America's Electrify Everything Guide. Really great resource that we referenced. They have a checklist for renters. We'll link all of that information in the follow-up resources after the tour. And you can also see a lot of these examples of the products I'll mention in Redwood Energy's Pocket Guide to All Electric Retrofits. So just a reference to some of the information that we use. And also, we also gathered a lot of the tips from what we've received at the Ecology Center Help Desk. So there'll be an opportunity for you all to follow up with additional information and resources there. So let's get into some of these strategies. We kind of compiled them into a couple different main strategies, as well as some resources and information about local options and opportunities. So strategy 1, go 100% renewable as much as possible. Make the electricity you use 100% renewable. Everyone in the East Bay has this option. If you live in Alameda County, you can get your electricity from EBCE. You should choose their Renewable 100 plan. And then also, if you live in, there's a couple other cities that are already using 100% renewable resources sourced from 100% solar and wind power. I believe Albany, Berkeley, Dublin, Hayward, Piedmont, Pleasanton, San Leandro, maybe a few others there. If you live in Contra Costa County, you get your electricity from MCE. So choose their Deep Green plan. We really wanted to call out some of these plans so you know exactly what to look for as you follow up and hopefully make these switches if you're able to. And if you live in the city of Alameda, you get your power from Alameda Municipal Power. So their power mix is composed of wind, small hydroelectric, and biomass, which is landfill gas. If you have a shared meter, you can ask your landlord to switch plans. EBCE is rolling out a community solar program for low-income residents. So if you qualify, you'll get a 20% discount on monthly electric bills on top of care or fair discounts that you may already be receiving. And community solar, just for folks that it might be a new term to you, community solar provides homeowners, renters, businesses kind of equal access to the economic and environmental benefits of solar energy generation, regardless of the physical attributes or ownership of their home or business. So it really is a kind of community effort to get on solar and to really bring down our reliance on fossil fuels. Community solar refers to local solar facilities shared by multiple community subscribers who receive credit on the electricity bill. So all that information, when you are looking into it, if you're interested, if you just want to learn more about community solar, kind of just understanding what community solar is defined as will really be helpful and in that journey. Moving on to our next strategy. So strategy 2, shrink your energy use as much as possible. As you can see here, here are some really simple, straightforward opt-outs or alternatives that you can use. You likely already know some of these strategies to shrink your electricity. Lots of you are probably already opting into some of these. LED light bulbs, they require very little energy compared to incandescent and halogen bulbs, and they don't possess the hazardous waste problems of fluorescent bulbs. LEDs have really evolved. There's a lot of variety now, different shapes, colors, clear, matte, different options there. If you are going for a specific aesthetic in your home, you can do that and still be green, which is great. And you can see some of those pictures here on this slide. And then next, phantom power, or some call it vampire power. So that's the electricity your devices are sucking when they're not in use. So even when they're turned off or in standby mode, your DVRs, your TV, cable boxes, modems, laptops, all of those draw phantom power. So we want to really eliminate that as much as possible when we're able to. The EPA actually estimates that phantom power accounts for 10% of your monthly energy bill. So not only choosing to eliminate phantom power can help us to reduce our reliance on fossil fuels, but also can reduce your bill. So who doesn't like and appreciate that? Power strips and plugins allow you to turn off the phantom load. So that's a really quick switch out that you can add to your home that will help to eliminate phantom power. Smart strips like this Casa or smart plugs like this Wemo allow you to program when the device is on or off, like during the night or while you're away at work or on vacation when you're not at home. And here we also have during blackouts, it's nice to have an electric backup battery to charge your devices and run a length of LED lights so that you have something while you make dinner in your Instant Pot. These batteries, the Goal Zero Yeti here, as well as EcoFlow, they can be paired with solar panels to charge them during the day. So of course, we're always looking at what can be most efficient. Simple swap outs or alternatives. There's something to look into if you're not already using those, or that's something that's a little bit more feasible for us folks who are renting. All right, and strategy 3, load shift. So I want to introduce the concept of load shifting, again, to folks who are less familiar with this term. Load means the power that all your devices and appliances are drawing. So load shifting means choosing to run your devices and your appliances when electricity prices are lower and shutting them off when electricity prices are higher. So it's a little bit of a game. It's not the most fun game if you ask me, but when it comes to really trying to green your home and choose what options you are able to do as a renter, as well as really having an impact on your bill and lower that bill, I'm all in. I'll play that game anytime. So factories have been doing this for a long time to save money. And so it's really time that as residents, we kind of get on board with this and get into that game as well. It's also a great way to keep those dirty fossil fuels off the grid. So during the day, the California grid is flooded with cheap, clean solar energy. But towards the end of the day, when people are getting home from work, starting to cook, turn the TV on, pop on your favorite show, turn on the lights, there's a lot more energy demand, but there's no more solar on the grid. So these are called your peak hours. You might see that when you're trying to opt in for your different electricity options there. In those peak hours, electricity costs more, and there's also more dirty fossil fuels powering the grid to meet the demand. So some ways here that you can load shift. Again, these are really straightforward things, that simple switches you can make. You may not be aware that you're even doing these things. So doing laundry in the middle of the day, especially in the last few years, a lot of us have been working remotely. Pop in a load of laundry in the middle of the day instead of waiting until you're completely done with work at the evening, or on weekends if you don't work from home during the day. Using an Instant Pot, a slow cooker, grab that thing out of your back cabinet, put on your food in the morning, let it cook slowly throughout the day so that when you come home, your dinner's ready. And also you're not powering up those electric items during the evening outside of those peak hours. Charge your devices during the day or night, but shut off that power strip during peak hours. We talked about phantom power, so that's an option there. And then there's also a program you can sign up for Ohm Connect. They text you when there are Ohm hours. It's kind of a game, again, to reduce your electric load during that time. And you kind of win points and prizes. If you're an incentive type of person, that's a great program, and it's recommended by BayREN, so something to look into. And load shifting, again, this is this strategy here. It just saves you money. Of course, that's always a great thing. And it also just helps to reduce California's need for fossil fuels on the grid during peak hours. We can't tackle this singular, so we have to all be on board with this. So this is something that we can all contribute to as renters here. All right, I forgot to check time. Hopefully I'm good on time. I'll wrap these next couple slides up. Strategy 4 here, space heating and cooling. So we've already had a couple of our homes mention their heat pumps. So heat pumps are the preferred technology for electric heating and cooling because, one, they are incredibly energy efficient, and also they cool as well as heat, which is a relief during fire season, especially out here in the Bay Area when you may want to close up your home to avoid that smoky air. We had folks on that first home tour talk about how much they appreciated their indoor air quality. So that's a great option there. There are a few kinds of heat pumps that renters can buy and use instead of your existing gas-powered HVAC systems. And of course, when you move as renters, we want to take all of that with us. So this is an option as well that you are able to own yourself and take if you are moving into another rental. On the left, you see here the portable heat pump. This is a Black & Decker heat pump. You can buy it online for about $450. In the middle, this is a Gradient heat pump. This is a product from a new San Francisco company called Gradient. It sits like an apron over your window edge, as you can see here in this photo. And then you can also try your hand at influence your property owner. Like we said, some of us who are in multifamily properties or apartments might not have these options, but talk to your property owners, your landlords, your building owners, talk to them about the Bay Rent program for multifamily property owners. Some landlords don't know, some property owners don't know about these incentive programs or these programs or even options. So it's up to us to kind of bring it up. We don't know if we don't ask. So bring it up. We'll of course link all of this information, the follow-up resources. Bay Rent has free consulting, generous cashback rebates, no cost financing to make your building cleaner and greener. And there's a lot of times it's going to save your landlord or property owner money. So probably lead with that. I've never met anyone who doesn't want to save money, especially our property owners and landlords. So definitely bring that up to your landlord and see if it's an option, see if they want to learn more about it, if they're open to learning more about it. And we'd be happy to share those resources as well. And there also are other electric options for heating. Now, to keep in mind, they're not energy efficient like the electric standalone fireplace you have here. We do want to know it's not energy efficient, but we do want to share it out as an option. Different folks have different opportunities, are able to do different things. So we do still want to bring this up. Plug-in space heaters, electric blankets, electric outdoor patio heaters. Those are other options that you can use to avoid burning fossil fuels. Again, they're not the most energy efficient. We recommend some of the other strategies and options before that, but we do want to be transparent and share all the options available. I hope that makes sense there. All right, and strategy 5, minimize hot water use. So the tenants, we don't have much control over the water heating system. If your water heater goes out, your landlord or property manager usually has to fix it ASAP. If that's coming up for you in your building, if you've had this conversation recently, that's a perfect time to let them know in advance that you prefer an electric heat pump. So when that water heater goes out, that's the perfect time to slide in there and see if we can green that home or that building. And the Bay Rent rebates that are available to them. Of course, like I said, as folks who've been renting for a while, we know landlords are always looking, or most of the time looking for options to save money. So let's bring that up with them and let them know there are rebates and other incentives that can support this transition. Less gas plumbing means less flammable gas. So you can appeal to their inclination to reduce fire hazards. They want to protect their properties, so do we. And also we can green the home in the process. In the meantime, again, some more straightforward, really direct things that you can do. Reduce your hot water needs. Rising Sun does greenhouse calls, which are really cool. They'll drop off a free kit. It includes a low flow shower head, also low flow faucets and aerators for your home that you can do a quick swap outs. If you have leaks, drips, or a runny toilet, ask your property manager to fix it. They might not know how much that's costing them, not only the impacts on our climate, but they should be motivated because they're losing money by having those things not fixed and not efficient. Cook electric. So we've seen a lot of that already. If you're here for day one, I'm sure you saw a lot of induction cooktops and stoves and things like that. Here are some options. I believe Amy, Rebecca, somebody already mentioned induction cooktop lending program. So there are a lot of those rolling out all over locally as well as in different places, depending on where you live. The kitchen is just really a great start to get off fossil fuels because the stove is actually the only gas appliance that isn't vented to the outdoors. And folks might take a minute and realize that and realize what that actually means for your indoor air quality and your own health for you and your family. So you're really breathing in all of those toxic air pollutants that are the byproduct of combustion. Even when the stove is off, that pilot light, it's emitting methane, greenhouse gas in your home. People don't necessarily realize that. So there's been a ton of studies done on the effect of gas stoves on indoor air quality in the last few years. Educate yourself, your families, your landlords, whoever, so they know, kind of what the impacts are and what different options can help with the benefits of going all electric or induction. The issue is even more important to us renters because the smaller the space, the higher the concentrations of those pollutants are. So again, it's just educating ourselves, our landlords and our families to see what it is that we can do about it. Here is an induction hob. This is a $56 portable induction cooktop that you can use. More and more people are just completely abandoning their gas stoves and just using these instead. You can put a pot on there, you can cook anything that you'd cook on your regular stove and just no longer use your gas stove and have those pollutants in your home. And you can also test drive one of these induction cooktops if you want to test it out, see how it would fit in your home, see how your favorite dish is cooked. The Berkeley Public Library has a lending program, and the Ecology Center, actually, we just started a lending program where you can come through a partnership with EBCE and Actera. You can come to our resource center, sign up online, and then pick one up at the Ecology Center in Berkeley if you want to just get a couple weeks of practice and see and check it out. There are other electric cooking devices that can also help you get off gas. The Instant Pot, we've already mentioned, a lot of folks love and use electric induction wok. So for specific dishes, if you're looking to cook toaster oven, George Foreman grill, if you're really into that barbecue smoke flavor, you can still cook your regular, maybe your cultural family traditional dishes, induction and electric. There's no reason that you have to abandon those special recipes just because you're going induction. There are a lot of different options out there now. Uh-oh. Get back to my slide. All right, wrapping up on these strategies. Strategy looks like we're 7, green your laundry. So again, these are some, for me, honestly, myths, some things that I've been doing my whole life that didn't necessarily realize are opportunities to make a change. So cold water is king. Using cold water when you wash your clothes. For years, I think we've all believed, or at least I'll speak for myself, that you needed to wash your clothes in the hottest of waters, maybe except for colors, but things have really changed. We have updated a lot of the appliances as well as laundry detergents. So according to consumer reports, you no longer have to use hot water to get clothes clean. Energy Star rated washers are designed to minimize the need for hot water. So put that machine cycle on cold, you're saving energy. Even though newer machines use less water, they're much better at cleaning than machines that were made 15 years ago or longer, if you've got those still around. Detergents, like I said, are now formulated differently, allowing them to be more effective at cooler temperatures and actually less effective as the temperature rises. So keep those cycles cold. A hot water cycle can actually set stains into clothing. It can damage fabrics and degrade clothes. And if we want to even get into the plastic, which I can talk all day about, clothing made from plastic-based materials like your polyesters, rayon, nylon, acrylic, they actually shed tiny plastic fragments known as microfibers when they're washed. So washing in hot water actually loosens a lot more of those up. So keeping it cold as much as possible will actually help those fibers stay in place, eliminating plastic pollution as much as you can during your wash cycles. If you have gas powered driver, that vent that goes outside, we talked a lot about indoor air quality, but if we're going to talk about climate change, we also want to be cognizant of what we're putting outside. So even that gas powered vent that's going outside, it's polluting your local air. So there's no good having indoor great quality air just to walk outside and be polluted with all those toxins. So definitely keep that in mind as you are thinking or considering about making the switch to more energy efficient appliances and in your laundry. Gonna do a quick time check.
Yeah, you're good. We have about 3 more minutes.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Amy. All right, so wrapping up this, if you have a gas powered driver or dryer or vent, you want to definitely, if you're using like scent laundry detergent, those little beads that smell great, you also have to consider those toxics that they're releasing out into your outdoor air, your neighboring air quality. Those volatile organic compounds those carcinogens are being released out into the atmosphere. So we want to really eliminate that as much as possible outside of just wanting to reduce our reliance on fossil fuels. In lieu of using that gas dryer, of course, we already saw some built-in options in some of these homes. Just dry your clothes the old-fashioned way, hang them up, hang them over your couch, wherever you need to do, hang them outside. It's warm enough out here in the Bay for the most part that you can get those clothes dry without even needing to put them in the dryer, period, whether it is hot or cold. And if your rental unit has a washer hookup, consider one of those all-in-one washer dryer. It's ventless, it's really energy efficient, and it takes up way less space, which is always important for renters. All right, strategy 8 here, sequester carbon in outside spaces. So rentals come in great variety from houses to high rises. And if there is any yard space or patches of landscaping, there are 3 things you can really do to sequester carbon in the soil. We've already heard a bit about this. Spreading compost and mulch on unpaved spaces. Compost is actually turning out to be a really powerful climate change tool. So spread compost and then cover it with mulch. Ed Mudd has coupons for mulch. City of Berkeley has options for free mulch that folks can pick up. Follow up for more resources and information about that. It keeps both moisture and carbon from escaping into the atmosphere. So that's just, again, a really quick thing that you can do in your rental outdoor spaces if that is feasible for you. Stop Waste is also rolling out a brand new program where you can get free compost at a compost hub such as City Slicker, Farms, and then like I mentioned, I know the City of Berkeley, there might be other city ran programs if you're in another local East Bay city that has those options. So kind of look out for them if you're not familiar. Plant trees, shrubs, woody perennials like rosemary, anything that's meant to last a long time. The longer it lasts, the longer the lifespan of that plant, the more greenhouse gases it captures. So just think about planting if you have that option in your rental space, or if you're a landlord, planting some things for your renters there. And then some East Bay cities, again, like Berkeley, have street tree programs. So checking out coolingourcommunities.com. There's ways where you can request that they plant a tree in front of where you live, of course, and we're thinking about shade, how that is reducing our carbon footprint. Properties located in, I think, Ashland, Cherryland, Hayward Acres, and unincorporated Alameda County, I've seen on that Cooling Communities program. There are likely other similar programs in other counties, Contra Costa County and things like that. So kind of look out for them, knowing that those programs exist, seeing if you have one locally, or getting involved in your local community to see if we can ramp up a program or something like that. And then, as I mentioned before, getting off plastic. If you are familiar with the Ecology Center at all, we do a ton of plastics reduction work, and there's always really simple swap outs that you can do that will just overall help to green your home and green your life. Oil and gas companies, they see the writing on the wall. Electric vehicles are going to replace internal combustion engines. They're just better all around. Induction ranges are replacing gas stoves. Heat pumps are replacing gas furnaces. All of these things, they're happening. We're here, we're moving forward. And oil and gas companies are really just doubling down on trying to elevate this message that we need plastic, which is complicated, but it's not true for the most part. Plastics are problematic in so many ways. They're polluting, they're detrimental to the environment as all of the other petroleum products. On the right here, you can see a photo of the Formosa plastic factory exploding in Illinois. If you're not familiar with that story, Rise St. James, the efforts and initiatives that are happening there, the fight, they've been fighting a planned $9 billion plastics facility that they're trying to build in that area that is already really devastated by the plastics industry. A lot more to read. Just try to get off plastic as much as possible, as much as you can make the switch. Just try. If you haven't been to the Ecology Center store, we have tons of great alternatives to plastics, from kitchen, gardening, non-toxic kids and children's products, books to help you understand and read and learn more about why you should get plastics out of your life. And also, of course, following up with us at the help desk. We're happy to answer any of those questions if you're still wondering. And then just stock up on reuse, refuse. You know, I can go through all of the R's: refusing as much as possible, reuse, reduce, and then really just using durables, reusables as much as possible, getting off of the single-use disposables as much as possible. And strategy 10, all electric multifamily housing. As I've said, this presentation, we really wanted to prioritize renters, or those folks who might be landlords of rental properties. If you're apartment hunting, it's good to know that all new construction must now have rooftop solar. So Amy mentioned kind of looking at some of the drone footage, you're seeing it a lot more, which is really great. And all new construction in a lot of East Bay cities also must include and must be all electric. So that's great as well. Some of the new apartment units being built are affordable housing. So having options, as we know, the housing crisis is real. And here, knowing that there are affordable housing options that are green is great. So kind of look out for those if you're looking to rent or might be coming up on needing to look for housing. Here are a few East Bay multifamily complexes that are all electric with solar heat pumps and electric kitchen. Top row are both affordable housing developments: Everett Commons and Alameda, and St. Paul's Commons and Walnut Creek, both affordable multifamily housing to keep a lookout for. And then the bottom row here, Ice House in Emeryville, Station House in West Oakland, and Coliseum Place is being built now in Oakland as well. So keep a lookout for those properties as well. Tell your property owner about some of these products. It looks like we're up on time. We have a ton of these. All of this information will be shared in the resources. There's lots of great programs to look out for to share with your networks on greening your home. Again, if you're a renter or you're a landlord, all of these informations and strategies are relevant. I hope this presentation gave you some ideas, options, solutions, resources. And just to go back and remember that we're going to make these available on the slides available on the Green Home Tours website, or again, you can follow up with us at the Ecology Center Help Desk. We'll be happy to share more information about all of this. Sorry to run over, but thank you so much. We hope that was a little bit of a pivot on rental options, and I'll pass it back to you, Amy.
Thank you, Denaya. I know that was just a ton of content, and thank you for pushing it through. It was awesome. So the next video that we're going to show actually has two homes in the same video. And I'm really excited to show these homes because these homes are projects, remodels that were done with the organization called Block Power. And we're going to have a representative from Block Power afterwards for the Q&A. So, you know, these are ways that energy efficiency and electrification is coming to underserved neighborhoods, and it's great. So let's check it out.
Hello, I'm Mark Hall, the founder of Revalue.io. We're a local company that prepares buildings for the transition to clean.
Hey, Amy, you're going to need to share your screen.
And removing home health hazards.
I'm sorry. Thank
you.
Try
that again. Yeah, of course.
Hello, I'm Mark Hall, the founder of Revalue.io. We're a local company that prepares buildings for the transition to clean energy by making them more affordable and removing home health hazards. Today, you're going to see three different homes that we have worked with to remove home health hazards and electrify them to make them healthier and more efficient. There are 4 easy steps that each one of these homes have followed, and we'll take you through those a little bit later. The first step is an energy assessment. A licensed professional comes by and conducts an energy assessment on your home. It takes about 1 to 2 hours. In step 2, we provide a set of recommendations to improve indoor health, comfort, and reduce energy costs. Our recommendations come with no upfront cost financing options and rebates that eliminate the upfront cost. In step 3, our vetted local contractors prep your home for electrification by insulating it, sealing all the leaks that make it drafty, and attending to any other repairs that need to happen first, like roofing. In the final step, the contractors replace your old gas equipment with high-efficiency heat pumps that both heat and cool. Then we add solar panels and storage batteries that discharge solar energy when the sun isn't shining. Your house is now ready for a comfortable, clean energy future.
Wow, it's been about 3 years that I've owned this house, and I could just remember like it was yesterday when I closed on this house. My wife and I, we have been looking for like 5 or 6 years for a home, and finally our dreams came true. And it was not only a home for us, but one more for another family. This house, when I look up county record, it was built in 1896, and really older home. But when I opened up the walls, everything looked like new. I knew I had a project on my hands, but I was more excited about it than I was nervous. So at some point, I crossed paths with Mark Hall and revalue.io, and it was a tremendous burden lifted off my shoulders. So when I first bought this house, I worked in workforce development, and to some degree, I still do today. But while, in the trenches, kind of meeting people and shaking hands and building relationships, I met Mark, the CEO of revalue.io. And as I kind of talked about my new home purchase, he got more and more interested in about my long-term goals with the property. And, fast forward a year from that point, well, not even a year, he had me fast-tracked on a plan to get my home updated and modernized. I really, my motivations were to not only house my own family, but to help house other families. And in the future, I plan to kind of promote this multifamily mentality of housing each other, not just for ourselves, but for our extended community. So I hope that we can spread the gospel of revalue.io and what they do with Block Power and other entities, so we can have other folks remove barriers to entries to spaces like this. Thank you for coming to my home. Welcome. Come on in. I do have to caution you, we are a construction zone, so be careful walking through. We're getting some remodeling done. I got a new family coming in, great family. They're going to be coming in about the next week. So we're trying to get it prepared enough for them to transition in. So come on in. So interesting story. So this, as you can see, the heating system right there, it was a furnace in my laundry room, but with the help of revalue.io, we were able to upgrade the kit. So if you can see right there, there's our heat pump system, our split system. It, the cool gets cool. So when it's on AC mode, it gets really cool and nice in the summers. Got a chance to experience that last summer. And then when it gets cold at night, you can heat it up. So it's a good look. In this house, we upgraded quite a few things. I just want to kind of reflect a little bit on what it was like before we got the upgrades. Before, it was like when it was drafty, it was cold in here because there's a huge attic upstairs. The walls, like every other bay, had insulation in it. But through the help of revalue.io, we were able to get some really high-rated insulation put in. So in the attic, and then at one point in time, there were little holes. They drilled some holes in the walls, and wherever they were able to detect that there was no insulation, they would just pump it in with this machine. It was actually pretty impressive and interesting. But if you can see like I said, this house was built in 1896. So you can imagine how old the wiring was. It was like external wiring. Actually, if you look up there, it was like a hanging external fixture. And so that wasn't safe and it wasn't modern enough for today's times, right? So what we did was, through the help of revalue.io, got some recess lights put in. As you can see, really just lights up the place. And Revalue was very flexible, very open to new ideas. When I had, design ideas, it was really fluid. So I can't thank them enough. As you can imagine, with many different people in your household with varying body temperatures and comfortability levels, temperature can be a big deal. Now, if you look, every single room has one of these heat pumps. And so you're able to control the temperature with this controller right here. So each room has one of these controllers. So at any time you get cold or if you get too hot, you can go ahead and set the temperature, set the thermostat to your liking. One thing you'll probably notice if you look at the front of my house and you're comparing that to the back of my house is that the front of my house is pink and the back of my house is blue. Actually, long story short, we found out that my house, since it was built so long ago, the original paint that was used might be lead-based. So we went ahead and started the process of just eliminating the lead-based paint and just painted it all blue. So eventually the house will be completely blue, no more pink. But to tack on to that, you see this mighty split system right here, strategically placed here, so it's not in the way. It's not an obstruction and not a hazard. And this hooks up, and actually Revalue help do this. It's hooked up all the way from the back of the house to the front of the house. So it's not too much of an eyesore, doesn't bring too much attention to it, but above all, we stay cool and we stay hot. One of the biggest expenses that I was not looking forward to incurring was the cost of splitting my 2 units utilities. And so after talking with Mark and kind of picking his creative mind, he came up with the solution like, hey, why don't we do this through our program? And so, long story short, we were able to split the 2 units, 3223 and 3221 Helen. And not only that, we got the bonus of this beautiful looking span panel, which is just fantastic. There's an app associated with it to control, if you want to control outlets and you want to monitor your output. All that sophistication is built in this span panel. So yeah, special shout out to Mark and his team. Very professional, very beautifully done. I'm very happy.
All right, my name is Vince Gibbs. I'm here in the northern Oakland, Emeryville, Berkeley border. I've been here for about 5 years. The house that we live in was previously my wife's family's house. We purchased it when her parents passed. Okay, we noticed that the house was drafty and would not retain heat. So that was one of the things that we wished to update, improve. And the other thing was that the heater did not really keep the house warm. It was always going, and it was probably a low efficiency heater. With regard to this house, one of the things that's important for me was that we set a baseline. You can't really improve performance if you don't know where you are. So one of the first things we did was get an energy audit. That's a part of this process. Once we got the energy audit, we realized that the house was leaking because there were various seams, and there was no insulation in between the walls. So the first thing we did after the audit was insulate the walls. Basically, it included putting holes in the wall and pumping in insulation. I noticed right away that changed the quality of the space inside the house. I joked with Mark about one day it was so nice in the house that I walked out with the short sleeve shirt and the straw hat on, only to realize that it was not warm outside. So that was my first indication that the process was working. Next, add to that, after insulating the walls, the next thing we did was installed mini split systems. And the what appealed to me about the mini split systems is an individual unit in each room, which included air conditioning, which here in the Bay Area we don't need very much, and I don't think I've used it at all. So the overall end result here was A, a more comfortable house, B, reduced our energy by at least 10%. I haven't done the calculations recently during the winter months, but it was noticeable on our bill. And the next iteration of this is to add solar to the roof, which is already in process. All right. Here is my mini split unit for my office area. So I get to control the temperature in here, independent of the rest of the house, which I particularly like. So yeah, and it's very comfortable for me. So one of the parts of, I guess the last part of this project was to get solar on the roof. And before we could actually get the solar on the roof, we had to make repairs to the roof because it hadn't been upgraded or maintenance in quite some time. So what Revalue was able to do for me was to wrap the roof repair, which was actually a new roof surface, into the cost of the entire project, which includes the solar. So overall, we end up with a more efficient house on the inside, a repaired roof on the outside, and eventually, which will be the last part of the project, will be solar, which will significantly reduce our electrical bill. So I think it's important to also mention that, you know, my commitment to get this done was partly trying to reduce my energy costs, but more importantly, doing my part to reduce the carbon footprint. I've been in the solar development business for well over a decade now, and it's time to practice what you preach. And I have this home that I would like to also put solar on. So, you know, through Revalue and Mark's company, we've gotten an opportunity to do that in a cost-effective manner that, let's just say, didn't break the bank coming out of the gate. So I'm really pleased about that and pleased about what Revalue has done to help us make that happen.
All right. It was very exciting for me to connect with Mark of Revalue and the homeowners, Raymond and Vince. And I think that today we have Rupak from Block Power. That is Rupak here that we can screen share? Oh, yes, you are. I see you.
Good morning.
Good morning. So just to explain, Revalue is the partner of Block Power that actually dispatches the contractors that do the work. But Block Power is the entity that makes this possible. And so we're really glad to have you here today. And so, yeah, Rebecca, you want to ask some questions?
You bet. Thanks so much, Rupak, for joining us. Really exciting to see this work. You know, I've been hearing about it in the news, but need to kind of see it. So we know, we know that Block Power is partnering with East Bay Community Energy to electrify low and moderate income homes in Oakland. If you're listening in, you're an Oakland resident, how do you sign up for that? And can you tell us what kind of repairs could get wrapped up into these upgrades and these remodels?
Yeah. So thank you for having us. And you're absolutely right, Amy. I think Revalue is our local partner in the East Bay, and all our work is made possible by them too. So shout out to Mark and his team and his network of contractors as well. So broadly, Block Power does a few things, but we work with larger entities to do public-private partnerships to help building electrification scale. And we also work with building owners individually. And to sign up, quite simply, if you go to intake.blockpower.io, there's an online intake form which you can sign up through and submit your building. You can also reach out to me directly, ROOPAK at BLOCPOWER.io. And so those are a couple ways to reach out, a couple things we do. And then as far as what kind of things we do, So we really help bring, as far as a building owner, help bring project financing as well as project enablement to the table. So what that looks like is we do everything from remediation. So in buildings that have lead, asbestos, mold issues, or really need electrical repair in order to get a home electrification ready, we enable all of those aspects to help install these modern appliances. And the other part of it is often, a lot of our work in the East Bay is with low and moderate income owners. And so we bring project financing to bear as well. So I can talk a bit more about that. Is that helpful?
Yes, very much so. Thanks. Quick question. If you're a condo owner, but you fit the income demographic, can you participate in this or not?
Certainly we can take a look. I think it depends on the condo bylaws. So if folks want to reach out to us, we're happy to help navigate. We aim to be a turnkey provider that tries to help you navigate everything from assessment all the way through project completion and incentive applications.
Okay. There's some questions, not sure if you can answer this one, but in the video, they were talking about splitting the service, and people are just wondering, like, is that a headache to do with PG&E? Is it expensive? How challenging or easy is that to do, to split that service?
To be honest, I don't know the answer to that one. I joined the company 7 months ago, so I'll have to let me get back to you. Let me note that down and get back.
Great. There's another one, and this one again, since you're newer, you may not know about these specific remodels, but they're wondering if part of the work you do is also, would you replace windows with either the double pane, or they're using a term low E windows, which is new to me. I'm not sure what low E, but they say they look really nice.
Certainly, that's part of the work we do. I think if we think about a home and getting electrification ready, doing the remediation and sort of upgrading the home is part of the work that we would do in order to help save folks money.
Great. Okay. Let's see what else we got in here. Okay, the company name, folks, this is through Block Power, BLOC, capital power, with a capital P, so BLOC. And we can drop that intake into the chat again as well. Maybe one of our chat ambassadors, if you could drop that in for us. Rupak, could you just say it again for them?
Sure, it's intake.blockpower.io.
Okay, great. All right, looks like they're, and this question came up about that they were, this kind of, that looks like our chat ambassadors are going at it. They're just talking about, when you come to a house, how do you figure out, like, should you do a whole house heat pump or individual mini splits for each room? How does your team figure out what's best?
Yeah, certainly. So there's a couple different elements here, and I think this is one of the innovative parts of both Block Power and Revalue is there's a lot of data and modeling that goes into it. So before we even come on site for the first audit, there's a lot of assessments based on floor plans, based on utility bills that can provide this information. And then Mark and team will come to the site at your convenience to help assess basically the layout of the house and also understand what your needs are, right? And based on that, they'll design a solution that would determine everything you're asking about.
Yeah, it sounded like it was a really collaborative process too. That the homeowners can that every Block Power client has sort of a different configuration of needs, and so I loved how built sort of essential repairs were rolled in. Like, you can't get solar if your roof is leaking, or those kind of things, or you don't want to put insulation if you have a mold problem. So I loved how the program wrapped in essential repairs.
Absolutely. I think at the core, our founders, Denaya and Keith, started this company in New York, out of Brooklyn, and they both started out as community organizers. So even within our work in Oakland, at one point we gathered a lot of community input before going in and doing this work. So that's a big part of what we do. So there's a lot of stories of, we're a tech startup in a lot of senses, and there's a lot of bad association that comes with that, of folks that are just showing up in communities and doing work without getting community engagement. So we try to do this as much as possible, and that's at the very beginning of it. But even after we install our projects, we do have a 15-year operations and maintenance plan to make sure that these devices are, working as intended, in case we need to go back and, especially some of the work we've done at large houses of worship in New York. There's a lot of sort of tweaking that sometimes needs to be done in order to make sure that there's optimized performance.
That's great. So thank you for joining us for today. And I wanted to mention that with Raymond's house, he had a span panel, which is a really terrific, very modern, very beautiful electric panel project that I hear that is an option for some of the block power projects. And in a few minutes, I'm going to introduce Nate from SPAN so that we can kind of give a little bit more airspace to the SPAN panel. But I didn't know if you wanted to say anything in advance about how that, it's not that these projects are, they're really getting top of the line equipment.
Yeah, absolutely. So, definitely a shout out to our partners at SPAN. It's exciting technology. I think as some of us know on the call, the heat pump technology, heat pump water heater technology, et cetera, all of this is constantly improving. And so we're always on the lookout for new technologies. So we also have close relationships with Fujitsu and some of the larger heat pump partners. And so, we're constantly giving them feedback, and we're in talks with them. And so, we want to be able to provide the best technology, the latest technology, and also the best technology for that fits for each home. So, that's definitely part of our innovation and our long-term goals. And eventually, as our programs scale, we're in process of securing large bulk purchasing discounts. And that's part of what will make our business model goes. We'll be passing some of those back to our customers to help bring project costs down.
Great. Well, thanks a lot. And I'm going to move on. And if you have time to drop down to Q&A to be active there with questions.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Block Power believes every family deserves access to smarter, greener, healthier, all-electric homes. But saying goodbye to fossil fuels can be complex. That's why we partner with you every step of the way, making it easier and more affordable to upgrade. Get started today at blockpower.io.
Okay, so that was span panel. We saw a span panel on last year's Green Home Tour, and I fell in love with it. So I'm really glad to have Nate here today to answer any questions about the span panel, which is really, has so much extra functionality beyond the regular electric panel. Um, so, Rebecca, you want to jump in with some questions?
Sure, you bet. Yeah, people are talking about span. My neighbor was like one of the first to get one. He was so excited. And glad to see that you're spreading and growing. Tell folks, why splurge on a span, excuse me, instead of just doing a regular panel upgrade?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Can you hear me okay? Audio's coming through? Okay, cool. Well, first of all, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Nate Entrikin with SPAN. So maybe just to answer that question by first just explaining what it actually is. So SPAN is a learning computer that replaces your dumb electrical panel on the side of your house. So the electrical panel itself was originally designed over 100 years ago to be a safety device for the home and hasn't really been innovated on since then until SPAN. So what does it do? I think at the most basic level, SPAN lets you see what's using energy throughout the entire home and gives the homeowner real-time control to turn things on or off from your mobile phone from anywhere in the world. So it is, I think, the most advanced piece of electrical infrastructure for the home that has potentially ever existed. And over the past decade, we've started to see a lot of home appliance innovation, and I'd say like the more rapid adoption of smart appliances. I think of SPAN as the brain of the home and turns the entire home into a smart appliance. And everything in the home just got a little bit, everything that uses energy just got smarter because now the home has a brain, whereas previously it did not. And really SPAN was purpose built for the adoption of solar and home storage systems and EV chargers, and provides a dramatically simpler process to equipping your house with these things. And then from a mission perspective, our mission is really to make home energy just more connected and intuitive, and to enable a more rapid adoption of clean energy resources. I think people used to think that solar was the gateway to electrification and reducing our reliance on fossil fuels in the home. And no doubt solar is crucial, right? But we really believe that SPAN is the anchor product in this regard and the real gateway to home electrification and solar adoption, things like that. You have to understand when and how you're using energy in order to understand and clearly see the value that that these electrification and the energy generation devices provide for your home.
So Nate, one thing I just want to get clear, does a SPAN panel make sense only when you have storage, right? If you don't have storage, do you get a SPAN?
Great question. It is a little bit of a misconception is that you need to have a home battery system, home storage solution for SPAN to make sense, and absolutely not. I think actually the most common way that I see SPAN being purchased today is bundled with solar. But I'll use my own house as an example of a home that just has SPAN. Quick story is I've got a lot of brothers and sisters, and my 3 older brothers and I went in on an investment property in Northern California in Bodega Bay about a year ago. Or now about 2 years ago. And we rent that house out on Airbnb. And it's a great house. It's a big house, but it doesn't have solar or a battery or an EV charger or anything like that. But it does have a jacuzzi, and it has a water recirculation system and thermostats and lights, etc. And we have house rules, that please turn things off when you leave, right? But a lot of times people don't. You'd be surprised how many times people leave and leave. I've even seen people leave with the jets on in the jacuzzi. And sometimes that home is going to be unoccupied for the next 2 weeks. And rather than needing to drive 2 hours up the coast to go flip a bunch of switches to turn things off, we can see very clearly that things, from 2 hours away, this is what it has been left on, and we can control and make sure that we are optimizing and balancing the energy use from an adjacent city. So I think that's one example of just SPAN for SPAN.
That, okay, totally makes sense to me now. You've cleared up a big misconception. So I know though that many people do want the SPAN when they have solar panels and storage, because if there's a power outage and they want to use their battery, and let's say they want to direct their battery, they can't power their whole house, but they want to do certain appliances. You mentioned the word intuitive. So if you're not super tech savvy, you know, if you're just like regular layperson out there, but you have a span, what's it like to have to figure out how you're going to power those appliances? And do you have to set all that up in advance of the outage, or just maybe briefly? And I know we're getting close on time. So
yeah, I'll cover it quickly. It is amazingly simple and intuitive. And that's part of our mission, is to make home energy easy to understand and easy for people to balance and optimize their energy use through SPAN. It just needs to be very, very simple. And partly that means, like, when paired with a battery, as an example, SPAN translates remaining battery life into terms of time. And you can very clearly and easily see how the changes that you're making with regards to the circuits that you'd like to prioritize will impact the remaining battery life, translated in terms of time, right? Like, not everybody thinks in terms of kilowatt hours, and you don't have to. SPAN tries to make it very, very simple, and turning a circuit on or off is as simple as just like toggling a little, pressing a button and the circuit goes off. It's very easy. It is set up and commissioned by the installer at the point of installation. So you don't have to do anything there to commission it or for it to work. You buy the product and you download the app for free, and it just works.
Great. Nate, there are a lot of questions in the Q&A, pretty technical ones. And if you have time, if you can stay on, hop into the Q&A and answer as many as possible. And there are also a few in the chat for you as well. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Nate. And I just wanted to say, having seen one out in the wild, and it reminds me of, like, I love my Mac products because they have such an aspect of design, and SPAN is a panel that clearly, like, architects were at the table when they were designing it as a product, and including, ease, beauty, but also ease of use. So I appreciate that.
Absolutely. We don't have any affiliation with Apple, but I often do say it's a very Apple-like user interface in that it is very intuitive to use. So I totally agree.
Okay, well, thanks, Nate.
Thanks for having me. Yeah.
And now we're going to go to a home in Rockridge, and oh no, I'm sorry. We are going to a presentation that I recorded earlier with Tom Kabat, and who's here today answering lots of questions in the chat. So a lot of times when you go to electrify, people will tell you that you need to upgrade your panel or upsize your panel. And so Tom is someone who's really been focusing on making the most of the 100 amp panel. So here's a presentation.
A few years ago, I saw a presentation that Tom Kabat gave for Redwood Energy. He inspired me to think differently about my electric panel, which is the nerve center of my home and a crucial piece of the electrification puzzle. Tom is an energy and electrification consultant for Good Gridison and also an environmental quality commissioner who assisted in developing Menlo Park's innovative all-electric reach code for new construction. Tom, welcome.
Thank you very much, Amy. It's great to be here.
So if you want to retrofit your home to go all electric, do you need to upsize to a 200 amp panel? And is this a hurdle that we all need to jump over eventually?
Well, no, we don't. Most homes can electrify just fine on a 100 amp panel because the electric panel is really one of the most underutilized pieces of equipment in the house. A 100 amp panel can deliver 24 kilowatts of power at one time. That's a whole lot of power. 24 kilowatt hours in an hour. That's equal to 32 horsepower. So it's like a third of a car engine out there running on the side of the wall. So that can deliver a lot of energy. We just have to make a plan for how to use it well and not overstep different parts of it.
So why would someone not want to upgrade to a 200 amp panel or larger?
Yeah, well, a few big reasons. In our area, labor is so precious and it takes a lot of labor to replace a panel and upsize it. So By avoiding upsizing it, we can leave the workforce available to do other electrification work, and we can save ourselves a lot of money. Typically around here, $3,000 or $4,000 saved costs for not having to upsize an overhead wire service panel, and maybe up to $20,000 if your wires ran underground to your house. So lots of money savings, and then lots of time savings. Even if you didn't have any slowdowns by the utility, just the time of scheduling this 2-day-long project to replace the panel is another time we can save. And then it's great if you don't upsize the panel, you don't have to get in line with other utility customers to get PG&E studies of it. Can your neighborhood take your new upsized panel, or does PG&E have to come out and upsize transformers on the poles around your house? Then, because we don't end up leaning as hard on the utility distribution system, they don't need to upsize it as quickly, and that helps keeps rates lower. Because when PG&E upsizes the distribution system, they hang a whole lot of new equipment in the air, and they get to earn a guaranteed 11% rate of return on all that, and that drives up rates. So by staying on our own panels, we can actually help keep rates lower for everyone. And then this basically, all these things together provide for a much faster transition to a safe climate future.
So Tom, I know that you've been co-leading a pilot project in San Mateo County to electrify a bunch of homes without upsizing their panels.
Oh, yes. My partner, Josie Gaylord, and I are working on that project, and along with the San Mateo County staff and contractors. And together, we're all learning a lot about the process of what it's like to try to make a plan, and what the plan can contain, and how it can be useful for helping us do this transition easier. Because what we're realizing is if we're really going to attack climate change at the speed that the IPCC says we need to be going, we have to electrify everything on the ground, including the homes and the car charging. And we have to make these electrification plans that leave space to get it all done. And so if you don't have a plan and you start electrifying things, it's possible you end up painting yourself into a corner. And you may choose the first appliance to be too big, and then there's not enough room for all the other things to fit. So what we're finding in this study, we're looking at 10 very different homes in San Mateo County and making electrification plans for them by assessing what they have and what they want to switch to, and how much circuitry it'll take. And in every case, we've been able to keep them fit on their 100-amp electric panel. And in the easy cases, we're able to do it just with efficient equipment and well-sized equipment. And in the tougher cases, like one with a swimming pool and they want a bigger car charger, we end up using controllers that essentially pause the car charger for a little while the cooking is done. And then when the cooking's over, the car charger restarts, et cetera.
So what are some of the strategies that can help a homeowner fit all of their electric appliances onto a 100-amp panel?
Yeah, well, it basically pays to kind of treat it like a puzzle. And what you're going to try to do is take a look at what is the equipment available to meet your needs, your end use needs. Like, I need hot water, and I need a comfortable space that's both cooled and heated with an efficient heat pump. And I need to get enough energy into my car by morning to be able to do my daily commutes, et cetera. So we're looking at those different things and trying to see how to fit them together. Basically, what we find an electrification plan contains is it can be anywhere from simple to complex. At the simple end, it could be just a list of the sizes and types of appliances needed. Say, like a heat pump water heater that's big storage, like 80-gallon size of storage, but a smaller circuit, say a 15-amp circuit that doesn't draw much power, and it takes advantage of the big storage tank, 65 or 80 gallons, as like a thermal battery, so that it can be slowly charged up during the day, and it's got plenty of hot water to deliver anytime we need it. And then for the heating and cooling, we're finding some of the solutions are just using, say, a ducted 3-ton size. A ton means 12,000 BTUs per hour, but say 3 tons or smaller, inverter driven, and that means computer controlled. That the heat pump can slowly pace itself up and down and really exactly match the temperatures we need in the house. You know, other things we find in the planning is it pays to look at what is the type of clothes drying they'll want to do. And so on here, I put the most power efficient one, which didn't require any additional circuit. It would be, say, using a combined machine where you put dry, dirty clothes in, and 2 or 3 hours later, you get dry, clean clothes out of the same machine. For cooking, where you find when people can use the regular slide-in range, which has a cooktop and an oven in the same appliance instead of a separate wall oven, that saves a lot of power and saves extra circuits by not having wall oven circuits. And then the other thing we learned is that EV circuit sizing is pretty important. People come to their EVs sometimes with this form of range anxiety that's charging anxiety. And then they end up getting these big old 50 amp circuits. And that really is overcharging their car and kind of overstressing the battery by essentially overheating it through a fast input. But just using a right size circuit, say in this example, a 20 amp 240 volt circuit, that'll give you about 92 miles a day of fill up to the car. And you don't have to fill the whole battery every day. The idea of a big car battery is you can slosh energy over from one day to the next. So, that's the kind of simple version of an electrification plan. It's just a list of the most efficient equipment that really doesn't take up much space. That's kind of putting somebody down towards the I want to leave space category.
So what are some of the devices that allow you to put devices on the same circuit that before you could never put on the same circuit?
Yeah, there's a lot of these are coming out now that are getting pretty interesting. They started with a device early on called Dryer Buddy, which is a little box about this big that had a small, plugs right into the dryer socket, the 240 volt socket on the wall that your electric resistance dryer plugged into. And then you would plug your dryer into one side of it, and it got power whenever the dryer was turned on. And when the dryer was off, there was another socket on the other side where you could plug in your EV charger. And so your EV would wait until the load of drying was done, and then it automatically activated. So that's the first type, and there are now about 4 brands of that type of plug-in circuit splitter. Include brands like NeoCharge, Split Volt, and Dryer Buddy. I've forgotten any others. But then there's hardwired devices, one called Simple Switch, which hardwires in there, and then it's not just a plug in the wall thing. And then there are pausers that measure the total power running into the whole electric panel, and they only pause your car charger if the whole electric panel loading has gotten up over 80% of its rating, which rarely happens. So in that kind of a system, you'd have very few pauses per year on the car charger, because it's rare that we, in my panel, I rarely get over 20% of its usage. So I would never end up having to pause the car charging on that one. And then there's whole panel solutions like smart panels. There's one from a company called Span.io, and they make a panel that you can prioritize the circuits. And when the panel loading gets up to 80% of its loading, it just starts through the order of dropping a circuit off and saying, okay, now I'm under, and I don't have to drop any more off. Or if there were real high loads, it would drop the second priority circuit off. So there, we've got lots of solutions now, from plug-in devices to hardwired separate devices to hardwired pausers, and now whole panel prioritizers. So more of this is coming on the market that's making controls a really easy way to go about this. local Menlo Park graphic artist helped us put together this drawing of a 100 amp panel on a 2,000 square foot house, just as an example, showing what are the new green circuits we might be needing to work in for doing the whole house electrification. In this case, we also in the bottom left put in a solar electric system. They like to feed back in through about a 20 amp circuit back into the panel. And then we would have an EV charger on it and a heat pump circuit. And in this case, we were able to reuse the furnace air handler circuit for doing something else. But there'd be a circuit for the clothes dryer and for the electric cooking and a heat pump water heater. And but I just thought I'd share this simplified graph, which looks at kind of these 5 main end uses in the house we're going to try to electrify, and the counted watts on the electric panel according to the National Electric Code for these different types of devices. So here's 5 different dryers, 2 microwaves, a couple of cooking arrangements, et cetera. Let me just show you quickly that combined washer dryer machine adds no additional watts to the panel sizing, whereas a big electric resistance dryer that's very common adds about 2,000 counted watts. And then a microwave, the same size microwave, just counts differently. If it's on the countertop, it's part of the countertop circuit's already counted. If it's built in and attached to the house, it just counts as another 500 or 600 watts. And then the cooktop, if you have a range, which means it's a cooktop with the oven under it, it counts about 3,000 watts. But if you've got a separate cooktop where you have wall ovens, they count more. And then the difference between this is, say, 1 wall oven versus a double wall oven. And then in heat pump water heaters, there are new 120 volt versions coming out, which count very little on the panel. And then there's the most common version that's already out is the 30 amp water heater that counts heavier on the panel. And then we have now about 6 varieties or 7 power levels for EV charging. You know, more than half of people just charge their EV from plugging it into a 120 volt plug using the charger that comes in the trunk of their EV. And that's able to give you about 35 miles a day, about 13,000 miles a year, and doesn't add any counted watts to the load calculation. And then here I just go through a series of 10, 15, up to 50 amp circuits and how much they count on the electric panel and how many thousands of miles of charging you get per year by upsizing those circuits. So these resources like the retrofit guide and like the Watt Diet site are pretty useful for folks taking a look at that. But I really recommend kind of sketching out your own ideas for your electrification plan and then sharing those with the contractors you select so they know that your goal is staying on the electric panel. And then they're able to pick the equipment that helps you stay there, you know, to stay within your constraints.
So I want to thank Tom for doing that interview with me a few months ago. I am currently trying to make the most of my 100 amp panel, inspired by Tom's work. And so if you are just starting out with this process, it's really worth checking it out and thinking about ways to make the most of what you already have. And like I said, Tom is here today. He's been really active in the comments. He's a great resource. So please keep the questions coming. And now we're going to turn to this beautiful home in Rockridge. And Rick is someone who did all of his electrical and going solar and storage all at once. And he's also someone that uses apps a lot. So let's check it out.
Hey everyone, good morning. My name's Rick Griffith. Today I'm excited to show you my home that my wife, my 3-year-old son, and I moved into just last summer actually. And I want to talk to you today about our 1915 Craftsman and how we decided to completely electrify with solar, battery storage, and shifting to a heat pump all at the same time. And I'm also really excited to talk to you about the different apps I use to control all of those, all that electrification. Welcome to the back of my house. I'm standing in front of my new M-Phase battery storage system. And I want to talk to you about why I chose to get solar. I grew up in the East Bay and I grew up running a lot on trails and I never had to think about smoke. Fast forward 10 or 15 years, I joined the military, moved all over the country, and my wife, my son, and I were living in Virginia and chose to move back to the East Bay. And before we moved back, our friends were sending us videos of how smoky the East Bay was. And the first summer we moved back, it was too smoky to go outside a couple days. And that really made me pretty angry. I thought it was unfair that my son, after COVID, was going to have to shift from masking due to the pandemic to masking outside because it's so smoky. And my wife and I sat down and said, what can we do to try to prevent climate change, make the East Bay cleaner? And we thought, hey, solar's the way to go. So right now, my solar panels provide enough energy to keep the house off the grid during the day. And also, my batteries are great because this is my solar energy at night. When the sun goes down, the batteries can carry the entire load on my house, sometimes all the way through the night. Last night, they lasted until about 6 a.m. And why that's really great is when the sun goes down everywhere over California, all these massive grid scale solar plants stop producing. So a lot of dirtier plants like coal and natural gas kick on. So if I can do my part to keep the grid clean at that time by not taking a bunch of demand, that's less of a carbon footprint and cleaner air and hopefully less summer fires in California. In addition to keeping the grid clean at night by not picking up a lot of demand, I love my battery system because if there's ever a storm, I know that I'm going to have backup power. So right now, my system is about, it's a 20 kilowatt system. At all times, I maintain 30% of the battery on backup. And that's really important to me because I have a sump pump downstairs. So say, for example, there's a horrible rainstorm, power goes out, my French drains drain to the sump. So if I shut off all the rest of the power in my house, I know that my sump pump will be able to operate for 2 or 3 days, and I won't have to worry about the basement flooding. Additionally, if there's fires in the area and we lose power in the summer, I can use my battery backup to power the new heat pump HVAC system I have, which has great filters, which will keep the smoke out of my house. So not only does the battery help prevent climate change, but it's also a great backup source for me in the house for some of the essential loads that I have. There are so many ways to remove natural gas in your house. When we bought this house, there was a large natural gas heater that made the back patio nice to stay out at night. We replaced the one natural gas furnace with 2 electric heaters. They work great, controlled by a remote control, and it just makes the backyard super comfortable at night. This is my new heat pump. It's connected to 2 air handlers inside, one up in my attic and one down in my crawl space. And I'm going to take you inside and show you what the units look like. One of the things I love about my new heat pump system is that it was not very invasive in the home. You can see I was able to keep a lot of the original ducting to the house. And one of the reasons my wife and I fell in love with this house and bought it is because of its old character. It's so hard to find character like this with so many new builds. So when we approached Scott Watts and they told us that we could keep a lot of the old character with their ducted systems, we were happy because it means not having to replace trim and just keeping a lot of the old features of the house, which make it so special. Welcome to my attic. There's 3 things I want to show up here. First and foremost is my new air handler. This heats the air, cools the air for my entire second story where all my bedrooms and 2 bathrooms are. It also has a HEPA air filter, which is awesome on any smoky days or really if there's anything in the air. The filter keeps it out. What was really important about doing the new HVAC work with some other installation was that we did it all at the same time. So right now I'm sitting on plywood, which is on top of brand new insulation. My installer, Gottwatts, coordinated all of the new insulation work with their ducting to make the process as seamless as possible. If I were to decide retroactively to have replaced the insulation, Gottwatts will have had to have come back, ripped up a lot of the solar runs and a lot of their ducting to make it work. So by doing it at the same time, it just made it super easy. I also have an attic fan up here, which is controlled by a temperature rheostat. So whenever the temperature in my attic hits 100 degrees, the fan kicks on and sucks in cold air from outside to replace the super hot air in here. I don't think you can see it, but I'm sweating. It's so hot right now. And what that does is it minimizes the temperature differential between my attic and the bedrooms below, and it just makes the insulation way more effective at keeping those rooms cool in the summer. So I'm standing right now below where I was just sitting in the attic, and you can see the ducting for the heat pumps coming out of my ceiling. Very low profile, and actually very quiet when you're in the room. Unlike a forced air system, when it's on, you can't even hear it. You just feel the conditioned air coming into the room. Very nice. So one of the things I noticed when I moved into this house is that the windows were drafty. So there was a lot of hot air, cold air coming into the room from outside. And it was also pretty noisy. So one of the easiest ways to achieve energy efficiency in the house was to actually replace some of the windows. On the front of the house, that was difficult because we have these beautiful windows that used to be here that were built in 1915, and we really wanted to maintain the character of the house. So we found a custom window builder who replaced the old single pane glass with a special plastic laminate. So there's glass, there's plastic, and there's more glass. And what that does is it really helps maintain the conditioned air in the house, but also because they're new windows, there's fewer gaps, so you don't have as much as that drafty air coming back and forth. And being on a busy street, this also cuts way back on noise pollution. But overall, it just makes for a really comfortable room. So while we were electrifying the house, we tried to get rid of as many gas appliances as we could, which included replacing the old gas dryer with an electric dryer. When I renovated my basement, I found 2 irrigation analog controllers hidden in various crawl spaces. So I replaced those 2 analog controllers with a single digital controller, which is really nice because it's connected to the internet and knows, hey, if it's going to rain an inch this week, let's cut back on the watering or turn it off completely. So it's really, I get to set it and forget it. I don't have to worry about how much it waters the yard. I know it's going to be water minimal. So you've seen my home, you've seen my systems, and now I want to show you the apps I use to control those systems. The first is my M-Phase Enlighten app. It controls my solar system and my battery backup. I love this app because when I open it up, it shows me real time how I'm using power, if it's coming from the grid, if it's coming from my solar system, if it's coming from my battery. And also it shows me just general energy use. So as I open my app during the day, I can see, hey, I'm using a lot of power at 12:30 in the afternoon. I wonder why. It lets me go through my house and really understand what the major energy users are. And overall, it helps me be a more efficient energy user. And really, most importantly, it's going to tell me if my house ever gets kicked off the grid. That way I know I've kicked the battery backup mode. I can turn off the lights so that I can keep power reserved for my sump pump. The next app I love using is my Beehive app. It controls my smart irrigation system. So my house has about 6 zones I irrigate. I go into this app, say what days I want to water, for how long each days, and the app takes care of the rest. Like I said, it's connected to the internet, so it knows if it's going to rain. The app shoots me an alert and says, hey, rain's forecast in the next 24 hours. We're not going to water today, which is super helpful for me while I plan how I want to irrigate my backyard. The last app I have is my Kumo Cloud app. It controls the ducted HVAC system that Gottwatts installs. So it's very simple. I can go in and set, hey, this is when I want my heat or my cooling to turn on. This is the general temperature range I want to maintain. And it really allows me to be energy efficient because if I know, hey, during the week my family's out of the house, we just maintain the house at a more economical temperature and then recondition rooms when we get home in the evening. And it's all super simple. I like using the 3 apps. It's really not a hassle. They're each designed well for what they do, and I keep them all in one file on my iPhone, which I call House. So I go to House and just control those apps from one spot. Well, thanks again for letting me show my home. I'm really excited to show you how all of these electrification processes I did at the same time really came together. I really want to advocate for that. It made the whole process so much simpler, especially with Watts coordinating all sorts of different subcontractors. And what was really amazing, which I didn't touch on earlier, is that Watts also processed an energy efficiency rebate for them. I did no paperwork. Watts just sent me a form which I signed, and a couple months later, I got a check for 4 figures in the mail, which was absolutely amazing. So again, thanks for coming to my house, and good luck on your electrification journey.
Working with Rick and Adrian on their project was kind of a dream for us, and that it allowed us to really integrate all 3 divisions of Watts in bringing both their solar and electrification goals to reality. And by upgrading the HVAC, we were able to get them the comfort and indoor air quality that they were looking for. And again, now seeing the final project come together now, it's working exactly as we would have liked. And again, it's kind of one of our prime projects to be able to integrate all of our services together like this.
All right, I see Rick here.
Hey, good morning.
Welcome.
Or good afternoon, I should say. I'm in Hawaii, so it's slightly
okay.
early for me.
Awesome, lucky you.
Yeah. We unfortunately we're quarantining in Hawaii. We got COVID as soon as we came out here, so
if you're gonna
not a bad place to quarantine though.
Say if you're gonna have some beautiful scenery while you stay put.
Oh yeah.
So Rebecca, you want to go ahead and ask the first question?
Yeah. Thanks, Rick, for showing us your home. We've got a few questions for you. The first is, as you mentioned, you decided to kind of do everything at once. You did the solar, the storage, insulation, the heat pumps. And so the 2 questions, what was advantageous about that and doing it all at once? Because I think for a lot of people, it's kind of like a piecemeal thing. So if you can kind of talk to that strategy.
Yeah, I think there's 3 things. First and foremost, it was the cost savings. So Watts being the primary contractor for my solar system and my HVAC, and also I'll call them the general contractor for the subcontractors they coordinated to re-roof my house and install the insulation. Using one company allowed me to avoid markups and really rely on them as a general contractor without the typical general contractor markup you get. So really the cost savings was huge for me there. We took a couple quotes and their combined package was attractive. And then secondly, the headache piece, having one company I could go to as the general contractor and coordinate all the intricacies of making sure certain installations didn't negatively overlap with one another. Really just made the process super seamless for me. There was a scene in the video where I was sitting in my attic, and I'm really glad that Watts coordinated the installation of the plywood and the insulation below their heat pump system. If I had done those one at a time, I would have had to have ripped up a lot of the work and then reinstalled it, which one would have been a headache and 2 would have cost more. And then third on the headache piece, again, just having Watts coordinate all the different moving pieces made doing everything in one fell swoop easier. And it made the whole project feel less invasive in the home. I think it would have been tough to run 3 or 4 different projects back to back, especially during COVID. Just having contractors in your home, it makes you feel a little uncomfortable, even if people are masked up. So being able to knock that all out at one time was pretty beneficial.
Cool.
You have, oh, sorry, I had my own curiosity was coming through here. You have a really big deck of batteries. And so, I think that especially as people experience power outages and PG&E's, unreliability during fire season, I think that more people are, and not just sort of back to the landers, but more people are thinking about like how nice it would be to be off the grid. And so I was just wondering, how often are you technically off the grid? And
Mhm.
do your apps kind of allow you to sort of play around and fine tune how you can be off the grid?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thanks for asking it. I actually initially only installed a 10 kilowatt hour battery system. And at night, some evenings when we were using a lot of electricity around dinner time and before bedtime, my battery system would only keep me off the grid until about 9 p.m. And I bit the bullet 3 months ago and called GotWatts back and asked them to double our battery storage. And because they had worked with us in the past, the permitting and design was actually super easy. But we doubled the battery storage to 20 kilowatts. And most nights now, looking at my app, I'm off the grid all the way until 3 a.m. or 6 a.m. So my app does a cool calculation. It's called energy independence. So it shows me the percentage of each day, each week, or each month that I'm off the grid. And for April, I was off the grid 69% of the time. And so far in May, with the days being sunnier, I've been off grid 75% of the time. So I've actually net exported to the grid, but just those few hours between 3 and 6 a.m. when I do have to pull in just a few electrons from the grid, that's what knocks my energy independence down.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, I'm a net producer.
Great.
There's it's really fascinating to hear about, because I think a lot of people are really concerned about the PSPS events and just not having a stable source of electricity. Here we are encouraging electrification, so really incredible to see what you're doing there. Got a lot of questions about your windows. People are loving them. They, so again, if you could tell us more about the contractor, so who you worked with, and they want to know, are they new or did they fix them? What kind of manufacturer? So just tell us about those windows. I'm seeing a bunch of questions on those.
Oh, great. He's probably going to kill me because he's busy, but he'll also like the press. I found a guy through the Berkeley Parents Network. His name is Angel Gomez, and he works for the window shop. But they do any sort of window replacement you want, from ordering factory windows from a company like Anderson to doing custom builds. So when Angel came to my house, I said, hey, I have these great custom windows in the front of the house. I'd like you to match them like for like. And then the back of the house, there's a lot of old single pane windows with none of the character. I just want to replace those with the highest efficiency windows that are on the market and low cost. So he coordinated with a factory supplier to build windows for the back of the house. And then the front of the house, he came in, he drew pictures, gave me a recommended design, and got most of the installation done in only a couple of days. It was a lot of work, but his attention to detail is pretty amazing. The windows, they look better than I could have imagined. Sometimes I catch myself walking by the house, just staring up at the windows, and it gives me a big smile. And energy efficiency aside, the noise pollution is great. We replaced these old single pane windows with what's called laminate glass. So you have two thin panes of glass, and in between them is a basically plastic material. So having the different types of material in a window makes them a lot stronger. I don't have to worry about my son cutting himself on the window, but also it really helps prevent noise from coming through as easily. When my wife and I moved into the house, we could stand in our bedroom in the front of the house and hear clear as day people walking their dogs, having conversations on the front sidewalk. And with new windows, don't have to hear that anymore. And I hope it's not smoky this summer, but if it is, I think my windows are going to be really well sealed. So I'm looking forward to having clean air in the house. The windows really keep a lot of the draftiness out. But I'm happy. After this, I'll post in the chat his name and contact info.
Thanks, Rick. And also, if you could check out both the chat and the Q&A. There are questions in both places.
Yeah.
Great.
And having been to Rick's house with Jude to video, seeing these windows up close, they were lovely and very well done. So I just want to second that as someone that saw them up close. All right, so we're going to move along. So Rick, if you could pop down to answer questions, that would be great. And thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you so much for putting this together. This is great.
All right, and I just wanted to do one more plug for Got Watts here. They are great for those of you considering sort of all at once, soup to nuts electrification. So our last home is made of straw bale, which is a terrific fire resistant material. And let's take a look. This is also an ADU in the back of someone's property.
Hello. This is a straw bale ADU. I'm Sarah Deeds. I'm the architect who designed it, and it was built by John McBride Construction. It was our first straw bale project. We're really proud of it. The first thing you'll notice about a straw bale is the extremely thick walls. These are about 24 inches thick. It makes it very quiet and just feels really solid. And we got these beautiful curved corners. The windows are low-end windows from Canada, and it's FSC certified fir. One really nice way to use the deep walls is to have window seats built in like this. And these guys, they haven't done their landscaping yet, but they're gonna turn this all into a garden out here. And this is south facing big window, passive solar. The little office also shows a way you can use the depth of the walls, and the desk is kind of taking advantage of that space. Up above, you can see the mini split heat pump for heating and cooling. It's probably overkill. It's the smallest size available. And in the wall is a truth window where you can see some of the straw. Straw bales are not hay bales. There's an important distinction in that there is nothing edible in the straw. So you don't need to be concerned about animals wanting to consume the walls. Here's the bathroom. Lots of natural light, high windows and skylight for privacy. Fire clay tiles, which are, I think, FSC certified, and a lot of recycled material, locally sourced. Of course, all the plumbing is low flow. The walls are made by stacking 2 foot by, I can't remember, maybe 3 foot straw bales with some rebar kind of keeping them all aligned. And then the exterior skin is lime plaster around 1 inch thick on both sides. And that is the rigidity for seismic, for shear walls. There's a little bit of lumber, FSC certified lumber in the top to support the roof and sort of to frame the openings for the windows and doors. There is wood supporting the roof, and it has a very deep overhang, and he built the roof before he built the walls so we could be certain that they didn't get wet. The light fixture is from Metro Lighting, which means it was designed and built in Berkeley. The doorknobs and the switch plates and various other things are unprotected brass, which bacteria can't live on. Viruses too, I think. Climate change has made our fire season longer and more painful, and straw bale is extremely fire resistant. So it's a good choice for people living in wildfire interface zones.
Okay, have we been able to find Sarah?
We have. Sarah was just
I'm here.
wrongly named.
Hey there, Sarah. How's it going?
Good.
So, Rebecca, do you want to start us off with questions?
Yeah, well, Sarah, welcome back. We got to see 2 of your ADUs today. And, you know, questions about the straw bale. So first of all, what sold your client on this idea of straw bale?
I am not 100% certain, but I'm guessing it was the greenness. It made a lot of things simpler because the R value of the walls is, I don't know, somewhere around R30, which is, you know, almost double a normal wall. And the lime plaster is thermal mass, which in our climate that has cold nights and warmer days, that dampens the temperature swings. So the straw bales are locally sourced waste product that's normally burned. So there's a lot of greenness there. I'm guessing the thick walls, you know, it's a trade-off. Their lot isn't huge, so they gave up some space, but they're just architecturally really nice, I think. But
yeah,
you'd have to ask them. I did not ask them that question prior to this interview. So
Sarah, folks are wondering how both the time and the cost for straw bale would compare to traditional, you know, construction, whatever, wood frame sort of.
I asked John. John was the builder. It was our first straw bale, so it was pretty slow because John was being extremely careful just to get it right. It was also all completely built during COVID, which, you know, there was numerous COVID outbreaks during the construction, but there was a few things that were fussy, John said, which were some of the nice features were fussy. Anytime he had to cut bales and you know, make them specially shaped took time. And then the lime plaster took time because it takes longer the reason why stucco is kind of taken over. Lime plaster was traditional for years and years, and it takes longer to cure in between coats. So that slowed us down. But I think it could be done, you know, if you were willing to forego some of these fancy details. Fancy details take extra time in conventional construction too. So I would say it's probably going to take just a little bit longer than regular construction, and cost-wise probably would be about the same. I mean, we were really excited about this project, so we didn't necessarily charge for all of our time. So that it's kind of hard for us to say for sure, but it seems like it could be pretty equivalent cost-wise and maybe only a little bit slower. Does that answer?
Yeah. Folks are wondering, you know, the term that straw bale is fire resistant sounds counterintuitive, because as you look through is it a truth window, you call it, where you see it, you go, that looks like it could burn. So could you talk a little bit more about that?
Well, the lime plaster is very fire resistant, as is stucco. Lime plaster is just considered greener than stucco. Just the embodied energy and the carbon equations. But the straw is very dense. So it's not, I mean, even if somehow the fire got through to the straw, there's no air in there. Whereas a wood framed wall, there's more air. Whereas this is just dense packed straw and the lime plaster.
Yeah, and the lime plaster is super thick too. It's thicker than, is it thicker than what, for instance, my house has a stucco finish on it, and I imagine that the lime plaster is a lot.
I think it's a little thicker. I haven't done a stucco project in a little while. I can't remember. It's similar, but
I mean, I had the house next door to mine burned down, and as it was tossing burning embers against my stucco house, they just fizzled. They just hit the stucco and dropped to the ground. So I imagine that.
Yeah, stucco is pretty good too. A lot of it's in the detailing, not having vents and.
Question if the straw bale construction could support solar panel weight. So I guess that's, solar panels on the roof on top of the.
So we chose to do a not load bearing straw bale. So the roof is being fully supported by wood posts. And we definitely designed it to support solar panels down the road. These guys, this was permitted before that was a requirement, and they weren't interested in doing that yet. But we could have done, we had Verdant structural engineers, I didn't mention them, and they were encouraging us to do a load bearing straw bale, which I'm guessing could also have supported solar panels. But we thought for our first straw bale, we built the roof first. We did a lot of things on the conservative side just to make sure it turned out well.
Folks are wondering the lime plastering that you've been talking about. Was it hard for John to find someone to do that? They're thinking that, that's maybe a hard skill to find someone who can do that work.
He had great skill. I'm not sure where he found them. He had two women that had apprenticed. I wish John was here. He's at our daughter's soccer game, but Jess and Darls, I don't remember their last names, but they had experience doing that. And that was important, definitely, having someone who, because it's a little different than stucco. But and I can find out from John and somehow answer in the chat the name. There's a local company that specializes in it. There's probably more than one, but.
That's great to hear. There is a local company. So good. Okay, so it looks like a lot of these you just answered. We talked about, that cost-wise, it's going to be comparable to traditional construction. Again, you said depending on how many of those, really nice features you want. But I must say they were beautiful. All those curved walls and built-in, the seating and just really, really stunning. Let's see. I'm just taking. Just looking through here. So just something that came up, you mentioned earlier, you talked about the R value of the walls. And for folks who are not familiar with that term, could you explain that a little bit?
The current California Energy Code requires, R19, but there's more, it's more complicated than that, but that's just the rate of conduction of heat through the walls. But it's a lot more complicated than that. There's thermal bridging, and anyway, these are very, very well insulated walls.
So higher than what's required is what I'm hearing.
Yes.
For the layperson. So
yes.
Highly
not quite
well
double
insulated.
What's required.
Yeah.
And the roof is well insulated too. I can't remember. I think it's also R30.
And then you said that, because it's both, I didn't quite catch the size of this ADU, but both because it's well insulated and smaller, that you tried to get the smallest HVAC system in there. So do you just have heating, or is it a full heat pump that does the heating and cooling? It's
a regular heat pump, so that they have AC also. Yeah.
That's great.
It's a little smaller than 500 square feet, that ADU. The planning department only, the assessor didn't measure to the outside of the walls. So they measured to like a standard wall thickness. So it's 4 something officially.
So one of the things that I had never seen before and that I learned through meeting Sarah and checking out this home is this idea that some brass switch plates, that viruses and bacteria can't grow on them. And so obviously, since we're still, slumping along through this pandemic, that's kind of an interesting feature, but it's a special kind of brass. It's not just any brass, right?
It's unprotected, so it can't have the clear coat that keeps it from the natural patina.
Mm-hmm.
It has to patina. It has to be, you have to actually be touching the brass. It's very trendy right now anyway. People like that stuff.
Soon we'll be like living in all brass rooms to try to get out of COVID. Well, thank you so much, Sarah, for dropping in, and it was great for me to be able to see a straw bale home up close like that. It does feel cozy and wonderful. So if there's more questions, if you can drop down into Q&A, then there may be some unanswered stuff. So I'm going to go move along to the sharing some of our favorite resources. And first I'm going to play one last sponsor message.
Maybe you want to lower your utility bills. Maybe you want to be part of a cleaner energy future. Whatever's on your mind, there's an app. Well, an appliance for that. See why so many people are making the switch to electric appliances.
Rebecca, you want to talk about resources?
You bet, Amy. And I'll just say the last one, our last message was from the Switches On, and I'm wearing my Switches On shirt today because you can be an ambassador for the program. So if you are partially electrified and want to talk about it to your friends and neighbors, you can reach out to Switches On, their ambassador program. So resources. So first, for everyone, we will be saving the chat and the Q&A and combing through for all the great resources and compiling them for you. But if you're ready to kind of take the next steps and learn more, I'm going to just highlight some of my favorite resources. So first of all, you can always go back to the Green Home Tour website and you can look up the details on the various homes that you saw today. You can also go to the archives and you can see 12 homes from last year and see their details. And East Bay Green Homes also has a resources page. And there you can find BayRen to help you find a contractor. You can find these How to Electrify guides from Redwood Energy and Rewiring America. If you are wanting to conserve water, yesterday we saw a great piece. You can check out Gray Water Action. And of course, the Switches On, as I said, proudly wearing, which is like a really good starting point to kind of learn about high-level electrification. And if you haven't visited before, the Ecology Center store is a really cool place to buy items for your garden, for your kitchen, body care, kids stuff, presents, what do we got? Father's Day coming up, graduation. The tour, is really stressing getting fossil fuel out of our home, and plastics are included in that. And the Ecology Center store really specializes in alternatives to plastic products. Ecology Center store was mentioned earlier, Denaya mentioned it, also launched a new induction cooktop lending program, and you can borrow one for up to 3 weeks. It's through a partnership through Actera and East Bay Community Energy, and you must be a East Bay Community Energy customer, so pretty much living in Alameda County. If you live outside of East Bay Community Energy territory, you can also borrow a program through PG&E. And for that one, they will mail you an induction hob and induction compatible cookware to your home with a prepaid shipping label. And I'll drop those into the chat. It's a free and easy way to try out induction cooking. And just want to remind folks, it says it right here on the slide, but if you do go to the Ecology Center store, whether to check out the hob or to get a gift, if you mention the Green Home Tour, you will get 15% off. All right, I'm going to turn it back to Amy.
Okay, so we made it to the end. Raise your hand if you watched the tour videos for all 12 homes. I'm just curious how many people saw all 12 homes. Actually, because I'm screen sharing, I can't see the hands, but I'll ask Rebecca and Denaya. Okay, so
about 37, 36 people have their hand raised now.
So we've recorded both days of the tour, and we're going to send links out of the recordings in the coming days. And I'm also going to be sending a post-event survey to you shortly, and I would love it if you could provide feedback on the tour. It really helps me figure out how to best deliver this kind of content and how to really be helpful to the movement. We're going to be keeping the Q&A fields live for the next 10 minutes. So if you continue to have questions and comments, we can keep it going. And we're going to be active there, typing any answers that we have. And I want to thank you again for attending today. Putting on this tour is a huge undertaking, but I really love sharing this content with you to light pathways and show you what's possible here in the East Bay. And I have really enjoyed meeting the homeowners and renters who are out there working to make their homes match their values and their vision for a greener future. I appreciate all my great sponsors and their essential services and advocacy. To everyone who watched or participated, please spread the word. I want you to own your power as a homeowner, a voter, an activist, and an influencer among your friends, family, colleagues, and neighbors. And if you found this event valuable, please donate at eastbaygreenhome.com. And donations of any size are enormously appreciated. And again, we're going to keep the Q&A open for another 10 minutes. But to all of those who are logging off, thank you again for attending and have a great summer.